Welcome, everybody. Hey, Show, do we want to unmute everybody and then let them just...
Yep, I'm doing that right now.
Show?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, do we want to unmute everybody?
I will.
Cool.
I'm doing it right now, or at least I'm trying to.
Here's Scotty.
I don't think it's going to let me. It's not letting me unmute everybody.
So it looks like, I just clicked unmute all participants. Hey, if somebody, one of you participants, if you can hear us,
There we go.
Unmute and say, hey, we're here. Hey, Zane.
Yeah, I'm here.
Right on.
Yeah, we're here.
Sweet. So we're going to hang out for a few minutes and just kind of shoot the breeze and catch up. If anybody wants to shoot the breeze and catch up. What's going on, everybody? It's been a while, huh?
Has been a long time. I'm glad to be able to get back in front of you guys here. Wish this was live. We're going to do something soon, hopefully live with everybody, but at least it's good to jump back on and start hearing from everybody again.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a drag, just places don't want to take any liability on to do anything live right now. And living in time. Oh, Brandon, you got a question. Yes, Brandon, you're correct. You need to unmute yourself. Yes. You are correct. I can't unmute. Oh no. Elisa, shit. Of all the people that can't unmute, it's Elisa. Let's try to give everybody new controls again. Force it? I don't know. Yeah, no, try it again, Elisa. Shit.
Muted by organizer. I unmuted everybody.
Oh no, and then when I see the audience chat, at least I know that's you, because it says I can't unmute, but it just says audience question. It doesn't tell me who's actually chatting the question or chatting at all.
Oh, really? So you don't get question and then asker and received?
No, let me see here. Maybe I got to change here to
Under questions?
Yeah.
Shoot, I thought everybody, people seem to have unmute capability.
Yeah.
Someone, Zane talked for a minute. Oh, there's Mike. Michael talked. It looks like Freddie's unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can unmute.
Okay. There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah, everybody, real quickly. Everybody unmute for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Hey, Freddie.
Scott. Hey, Shobit. How's it going? What's up, Scott?
What's up, guys? Good to hear everybody's voices for sure. Well, as you can tell here, as we've got kicked off, we started like 2 minutes late because in the background we've been dealing with audio issues, and you'll learn more about that here in a few minutes, including now trying to figure out how to unmute everybody so we can all chat. But there's going to be some other audio things that we're going to have to tackle here in just a little bit too. But we'll get into that. But welcome in, everybody. And I don't know, because I don't know who can see what. I've got video on as well. Can you guys see me?
I can't see you yet.
No? All right.
Yes, I can see you.
Oh, perfect. All right. I went full Autodesk. I grabbed the logo wear hat and everything. I thought it was appropriate that I threw up the new logo because, as you will see here in just a little bit when we get going, there's all kinds of new logos. It's one of the things we'll talk about tonight a little bit too as we get started. Jay, what do you think? You want to just jump in? You want to give us a quick intro and send us off, or how do you want to do it tonight? Oh, now is Jay muted and he can't unmute?
Yeah, yeah, I'm talking to the mute button like usual.
All right.
Yeah, I think let's wait a couple minutes.
Okay.
Let's give it 7 minutes till a quarter after. How about that?
Sure. Why not? We
Unless,
got
unless everybody yells at me in the chat to just start now and shut up, then yeah, I think let's maybe wait, see if a couple, because people are trickling in.
everybody's already like gone out and downloaded and watched all the blogs and posts and stuff anyway, right? Everybody already knows what's all new. Anybody out there tackled a download and install of 23 yet?
Not yet.
It's
Not yet?
it's downloaded, but we have not deployed it.
No Zoom link, Mark, sorry. We're going to look at technology for the future because as you'll see, the video audio is an issue. So next meeting we'll have.
And we'll look into Zoom since they fixed their security issues.
Yeah, either this solved or some other solution where we won't have to do any ballet like we will possibly do tonight.
Yeah.
But who doesn't like a little bit of ballet jumping around back and forth?
It adds to the whole, the drama of all of this, right?
The drama.
Some technology has to go wrong in a technology discussion.
Too many jokes. I'm just going to let those stay there.
It's way too late now. I have my Autodesk Zoom account. We could fire Zoom and just send everybody a link, but then anybody else that might join late, we'd have to try to get it out to them as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare. Leave it and go to, and we'll just go for it and see what happens.
Or we could put it in the chat window there and kind of leave this running. It's like moving an Autodesk AU party to another club. Just move it all.
Right? We got kicked out of that club. On to the next one.
Yeah, it's not going to be in Vegas where we could do that, where they could even transfer the bill for us. I don't know if Louisiana is going to want to. New Orleans is ain't going to like that.
Yeah. Who decided to go to New Orleans for AU and hurricane season?
That's you guys, man, right?
Yeah, you gotta go check that one on your end, Scott.
Where do we work? Where do you work?
I'm not part of the what do they call it? I don't know, the
event committee.
Event committee. Yeah, thank you. The event planning committee, the AU panel.
Look at yearbook staff. It's the high school yearbook club. That's who did it.
But AU will move around. Everybody knows AU's earlier this year, right? It's in September. It's not in November like it has been for years. And it's, for years it was after Thanksgiving. The last couple of years it got moved up prior to Thanksgiving. In fact, I think the last one we did live in person was before Thanksgiving, and then the last two have been virtual. And then this year it got moved back even further. So it's in September, and I believe I forget the dates. Somebody can look them up. It's mid-September, I think.
End of September, September 27th.
27th, okay. Hello from Burbank. Hey, Burbank, welcome in. Looks like we got about 20-something online at this point. In fact, in the attendee list, it says 23, which is perfect for Revit 23, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh, Lisa's saying it said she could unmute. Now it says no. And then she says it could be user error. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to make that judgment. All right. Jay says we're just about to start. Somebody in the audience is getting impatient. Start now. So
Let's go.
Jay's muted. If Jay's talking right now, no, yeah, he's muted, self-muted.
That totally sucks because I was laughing and commenting about as I'm answering the questions. Shit, who was that? Let me see. It was, I think, Mark that was talking about Zoom being a brand new software and all. So maybe we haven't heard of it. I was fucking laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
So if that was sarcasm, thank you, Mark. If it wasn't, shit, I just interpreted that all wrong. Okay, let's on my last send to all. It was good. Awesome. Thanks. All right, why don't we start it off, Scott? So first off, I want to thank Shobit and Blaine and the entire team over at Titan AC for helping us hook up the technology, even though, yeah, we'll get something better because we actually didn't realize there were going to be a bunch of videos, but there are, but we'll make it work. But definitely thank them for hosting and helping us along in this technological endeavor. And we are welcoming, as you see on your screen, if you have the, oh, there he goes, he disappeared. Scott Davis from Autodesk, who's a long time, both Southern California, but now he's kind of international up at Autodesk. Architectural technologist, he's one of the good guys. And this is our yearly presentation of the What's New in Revit. And I guess without further ado, thank you, Scott, for coming by. Thank you to all the participants for coming. And I'll talk to you again when Scott's finished, unless I chime in to ridicule him on something.
Jay, you might chime in. Might? Come on. I fully expect you to jump in and chime in and heckle me. There should be some tweckling going, Twitter heckling going on in the background as well. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me again. This is our once a year What's New in Revit 23. Some cool things have come out of all of this stuff leading up to What's New this year, meaning that next year you'll get a little bit more advanced notice of when the new release of Revit's going to come out. We've determined that we can change some things up. So the LARUG user group will actually be able to put out an announcement that says, hey, what's new in 23 or 24 at that point is coming up on this date and time, rather than being mysterious about it and having to use Michael Jordan's 23 jersey and telling you that in code that there was a webinar about Revit 23.
Oh
so
God, wait a second, his jersey is code for 2023? Wow.
No, oh, I misinterpreted that. It was just random that you used Jordan.
It's
That's
like,
funny.
It's totally random.
it's either Jordan or Kobe. So, it just turned out this year was Jordan.
Perfect. I like it. All right. So hopefully you guys can see my PowerPoint right now. I can't, I guess in this and GoTo, I was trying to do my camera, my webcam and my PowerPoint at the same time, but it's one or the other. If I turn my camera on, you see me and not the background, right? If I do this, turn that back on, says you can see me. Can you still see my my PowerPoint or no?
Revit
Yes.
2023 screen is still up right under you.
Yeah, we can still see it.
All right. Well, you don't really have to see me anyway. It doesn't matter. It's all about Revit tonight. So as we get going, the very first thing you'll notice on a slide like this that I purposely included, very first in the presentation is that, and you knew that things were going to change as of last year when you look down here in the bottom corner and the Autodesk logo and the A changed, I think for the 5th time in Autodesk history. So maybe you anticipated that all of the products when they came out would also get new product icons. So what you guys are looking at on the screen right now is actually the splash screen that appears when you start Revit. So this will pop up on the screen, and then obviously when Revit opens, it goes away. All of the products will have new logos, new splash screens. They're color coded. You'll be able to tell Revit 23 apart on the taskbar from Revit 22 and 21 and 20 and 19 and 18, I believe. I think all of those have the same blue R on white. And so when you put them all in your taskbar, if you have them all installed and lined up, you've got 5 icons down there that look identical and you can't tell them apart unless you've done a trick, which is to use the icon editor and make your own numbers, or use any of the different various downloads that are out there. I know that Aaron Mahler's got a whole set of icons that he delivers, so you can see those things. But at least in Revit 23, in fact, if I am I only sharing? Let me double check here. I'm going to unshare for a second. I want to make sure I'm sharing the whole screen so that we can look at what's under the taskbar. All right, so tab over here. If I go into Revit itself, Revit 23 itself. Oh, my task, there it is. So down here on the taskbar, can you guys see that? Am I sharing my whole screen and looking at Revit right now, just to make sure?
No, all we got is your PowerPoint.
All you got is a PowerPoint. Well, that sucks. Hold on.
Did you hit share screen or share window?
Sharing. I gotta go stop, show. There we go. I want to share this whole monitor. There we go. Now you should see Revit.
Gotcha.
Got it? All right. So if you look down here at the taskbar, here's Revit 22. PowerPoint's in the middle, and here's Revit 23. So now at least you can tell those guys apart on the taskbar. The icon on the desktop will be that blue kind of squarish figure with the R in the middle. All right, so we'll get back to 23 in a little bit here. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint. Now, most of what I'm going to do tonight is through PowerPoint. I've actually had a very short time myself to kind of learn some of these new tools and features. And as we go through this, there's actually a pretty good chunk of this stuff that is structural and a lot of MEP stuff, some fabrication stuff, MEP fab. What was that?
Show the structural first if you can.
Yeah, they're all, so the way that the slide deck was set up is they're all kind of mixed, because they really didn't do it that way this year, where they just did architecture first and then structural later. So really they're all mixed in. But what I'm going to say is that I'm going to do a lot of this through some video presentations that our marketing group has put together. There's actually a playlist that's out there and available on YouTube. If you go out to YouTube and look at the Autodesk Buildings Solutions group, you'll find a playlist for Revit 23, what's new. There's 33 different videos. Those are some of the videos that I'm going to be playing for you tonight, probably not all of them. Now, as we kind of set up for go-to here tonight, we had one little snafu, was that the audio from my slides or my videos are not coming through. So I'm going to do my best to narrate them myself over the top. I haven't memorized all the text or anything yet, but I'm going to try to do some voiceovers over the top. So we'll just see how this goes. But obviously, key is to talking about what's new in Revit 23 tonight. So let's dive into it. There's my Twitter. If you guys want to grab me there, at Scott D. Davis.
Are you sure, Scott?
Yeah, I know, right? Do I really want to throw that out there? Nah, I'm used to it. So as always, there's a bunch of different key themes that the different tools and features get organized into. So these are some of the things that we're looking at this year. A lot around design productivity, optimization, efficiency. The one icon that's not shown on here is anything for speed. I've repeated this when we do this in years past, that the one thing the developers have in the front of their mind with everything they do is trying to make Revit more efficient, run faster, load your projects quicker, orbit, pan, zoom, basically everything, like try to keep things working as efficiently as possible. And a lot of times those things don't get fully documented in a presentation like this, but in my kind of quick, since last week, I just downloaded 23 at the end of the week last week and started diving into it. With my limited models that I've been opening, things do definitely seem snappier, quicker, better. Again, I'm not in full production models like you guys are, and I don't have, a model with 25 consultant linked models in it or anything like that. But at least at first glance, it seems like things are much snappier. Now, here's the kind of slides that start bulleting out everything, and no, your eyes aren't fooling you. I blurred them out here because I didn't want to give it all away in the first slide, but this is just, if I go back one slide, design productivity, right? So this is the one slide of kind of a list of new things from design productivity. On the next slide is some of the simulation, interoperability, design optimization, cloud and data. One more slide, documentation efficiency. So there's a lot that gets covered in this particular release. There's no possible way I'm going to be able to cover all of these things tonight in the time that we have. And then some of them are just little things that I'm just going to skip over. You're going to discover them. You're going to hear about them from other bloggers and things like that. But in a presentation like this, they're just maybe not as exciting to hear about. So I've tried to limit the presentation to things that I think are good.
Hey, Scott,
Yeah, fun things for you guys to dive into. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
do you have those unredacted?
I do. You'll see them at the end.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, let's take a couple minutes at least to kind of go through, and maybe we can start some casual conversations with the entire group around them.
If you'd like to, I can skip to the end and show them to you if you'd like.
No, as long as we're going to cover and kind of look at them all, I think that is important to see all the little granular stuff.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I'll definitely show them in this presentation. The other thing is, okay, I just want to make sure it is being recorded. I want to make sure that Shobit or one of you guys actually hit the record button for us tonight too. So we definitely will show that.
yeah, we're all good there. So you can go on.
Perfect.
We'll catch that at the end.
Okay. Oops. Forward. All right. So design productivity. Very first one. It's one of those kind of like finally moments. The measure tool, as you guys know, has always worked in 2D. Now you have the ability to use that measure tool in 3D, but not just orthographic projections, also in perspective views as well. The ability to actually use the control key to lock that measurement to a perpendicular. So if you want to, like in this, well, I'm going to show the video here in a second, but moving from like one face to the next, you can hold down the control key. It'll automatically lock. You can still use your snap overrides while you're doing measuring as well. So if you start at an end point, let's say, and you want to make sure you're at a midpoint somewhere else, you can always do SM for snap mid, grab that midpoint and snap that dimension to that point. There's also the ability to turn on chain while you're using measure in 3D. So if I wanted the kind of, perimeter of this triangular like house shape, I could turn on chain and I could get the entire kind of perimeter distance around that shape as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And I'm going to have to mute these because they're going to be in my ear. Well, let me see if they're going to play first. Last try. No, any volume coming through, or is you guys hearing silence?
No audio.
All right, just want to check. All right, so let me mute it. All right, so the measure tool, as you guys know, up here in the ribbon. Again, it works in perspective or orthographic projections. And so as we start to zoom in here, you'll see that you just basically, there's nothing special to do. You don't have to set work planes. You just hover over the canvas using your snaps. They are in metric. We're only the last one of 3 countries in the world that still uses imperial. So the demos tonight are in metric. And then he's going to hold that control key. So you can see how that's going to automatically snap perpendicular between these 2 walls and give you that. And then also notice as that measure stays there, you can pan, zoom, orbit around it to understand where that is. Now we're going to switch into a pure orthographic projection, just do another measurement, showing maybe that if you want to measure the overall height of this thing, he's going to do a snap override here by right-clicking, grab that perpendicular, again, which you could also do with control as well, but if you want to make sure it's snap perpendicular, you can do that. Realize that also over here, the total length will show up in the options bar as well. So as you're doing these measurements, if the little blue text maybe isn't quite clear enough, you can always look up in the options bar and see that. Here they're demonstrating that chain command. So the checkbox for chain, they've done several measurements, and then you get the total chain length of those measurements. Moving on, next tool is around work planes, and there's a new keyboard shortcut. By default, it's PK for selecting your work plane, so you can select those on the fly. They've also kind of re-engineered the set work plane box, where it's just a pick box now, rather than jumping out into another dialog box that then you have to say, I want to pick a plane and go back into it. So it's really just a drop-down menu. You can set your work plane, or you can just say pick a plane. You can also use the PK directly from the keyboard shortcut as well. Let's take, one more thing, and then we'll take a quick look at that. So the other thing that's here is that if you have a family object that is a work plane based object, so whether it's a face based or a work plane based object, for instance, this little wine bottle that's sitting here on the table that comes out of the default family library. If I place that up in the old versions of Revit, if I went and placed that on the table, then got out of that command and went to some other and had set that to work plane face and went to some other command and came back and needed to place another one of those, it would be defaulted back to place on face, right? It was always defaulting back. So now the setting actually remembers for that family, what did you pick last? If it was place on work plane, it will always stay on place on work plane and allow you to be much quicker about that. So let's take a quick look at these couple things as well. Oops, So basically, you see that work plane, it's in show work plane is on that tabletop. There's that family for the bottle of wine. There's your new dialog, or not even dialog box, but your quick pick for that, where you can just go set work plane, use that keyboard shortcut PK, which you can also modify. If you don't like PK, you can make it whatever you like. But if you look down at your keyboard right now, they're actually really close together, so it's pretty cool. You can do that on the fly during a command. So what they're showing here is that the show command is turned on as well. And then Cad File Positioning is part of this tool as well. So the ability now, as you're placing CAD files, you can actually pick a plane or a named reference system that those things are sitting on when you actually link them in. So we're going to go in here. In this case, we're going to grab a 3DM file from Max, and then you get the place at level drop-down list. Again, this works for DWG, Max files, object files, really everything else, and you can actually tell what plane that object is going to be associated with. This last part of this video is where it actually shows that if you place it once, it's actually saving that setting for you, so you're not having to go always back to the ribbon and double check that where your work plane is being adjusted to. You see over here in the options bar, placement plane is actually right now on this Herman Miller table. Next time you go back there, it'll be defaulted back to that exact same work plane without you having to reset it all over again. Okay, all right, moving on. Well, thought I was moving on. There we go. This is actually a really big one. I know a lot of you guys work with materials. I think probably the majority of the people on the call, I don't see the list in front of me again right now, but maybe a quick poll of the audience, or maybe Jay or Shobit, if you guys know, majority of people probably more architectural focused on the call tonight, or we have some engineering types as well?
We got both. We got a decent mix.
All right, good. Well, for the engineer types that don't render, you know, skip this one, go do something for a second while we talk about materials.
Even for the structural and other folks, materials are actually quite important. So please don't skip over.
Nope. All right, we won't skip over it. All right, so this one in the old system, Revit 2020, gosh, can't talk tonight, 22 and prior, if you went into the material dialog box and you went, the only choice was duplicate material, that material got duplicated, and then in the assets, this part of the material dialog box, what it did not do was it did not also then duplicate those assets. So in the example that's on the screen right here, we've got like an image pattern for some birch plywood here, and it's a stained color that's an RGB value. You could duplicate the material, but if you also didn't go in and duplicate the assets, if you changed an asset, it would still be tied to those two separate materials, the old one and the one you duplicated. So you might be in something, you're like, okay, I'm gonna make this stain a little bit darker. Well, why the heck did it just change all of my doors? I duplicated the material. It was because the assets were tied to both of those materials. So now you have a new option. One is duplicate material and assets, which does a duplication of the material name itself and also duplicates the assets, so you're not overwriting the other one. Or the other new choice now is duplicate using shared assets. So what that does is basically does it like the old methodology where the material name would get duplicated, but the assets are shared amongst multiple materials. So now you've got the ability to do both of those things. This one is actually really big. I know that with the pandemic and COVID, many of you guys went to remote workplaces. BIM 360 and or the Autodesk Construction Cloud became big parts of your workflows. A lot of people were using what we now call Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, or more simply the Revit Cloud work sharing component to share your models amongst your own teams and amongst your consultants. The big thing was if you got into materiality, all those material definitions, meaning all of like the JPEGs, the image files and things like that over here in the dialog box, were all saved and pathed locally. So when you threw a file up on the cloud, and if somebody else went to render it, then you started getting all of the, man, that texture is missing. We can't find that texture because it's pathed to C, users, you know, S Davis. It was my path. So now what you can do is actually have your rendering assets, the JPEGs, the colors, the PNGs, etc., saved into an external location, meaning a BIM 360 site, an Autodesk Construction Cloud project. You can actually make a folder there, and you can take all of those material assets and put them in that folder in the cloud project. Or you can also do this to your own custom paths as well. So you can actually expose server connections. So if you'd rather have your images, your files on a, I don't know, let's just say Dropbox or some other external to Autodesk solution, you can do that as well now through the API. So it's really going to help you guys when you're doing those renderings through the cloud, that if a material is made and that texture, that JPEG is shared in that cloud site, anybody else that hits render is going to get the exact same results because they're going to be assured that they're using the same materiality for that texture. And I pretty much just said all of that, so I'm actually going to skip the video in this particular case because I'm just going to voice over everything I just told you again. All right, this one's actually pretty interesting. And last night I got told that this was already available, but I went back and researched a little bit. What this is view reference search. This is in particular to when you're actually searching for a specific view reference. So it's basically making the UI consistent, which adds this search functionality to this particular tool. It's in other tools where you're searching through long lists of views like this, but this one is a new one, and this one specific, you can search by view type, target view. You have that little search functionality up here, so you can see you start typing in large, it will start to filter this list and show you all of the views that match that particular type. So again, it's one of those little things. There's a question in the chat real quick, something about being problematic. Can the asset duplicates be removed? Will this make the file size really large over time?
Yeah, I kind of answered it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just a new functionality. If you really think that the material assets are bloating the file, there's some other major technological issues going on, because those material assets, even if we duplicated 100 materials, it's not that big of a strain.
No, not at all, Jay. I totally agree with you. The JPEGs themselves are actually pretty tiny. All right, moving on. Another big one, I feel. Hopefully you guys are appreciating some of these. These are some of those things that are little that we've asked for a long time. So now we've actually made some additional categories cuttable, meaning things like furniture, furniture systems, casework, specialty equipment, and plumbing fixtures are all have the ability to be cuttable now. So in years past, if you had casework and you drew a section line through it, you actually wouldn't get the cut profile of that casework. Now you can actually go into the family itself, go into the properties and say enable cutting in views. Right here is a little checkbox. So you can check that box off, and then every time you have that casework, this particular family cut in a view, it'll actually show that way. And again, applies to specialty equipment, plumbing fixtures, furniture, and furniture systems. So I think a welcome addition there as well. There's another video, again, guys, just for time's sake tonight and the fact that the audio is not working well, if I've explained it, or if I feel like I've explained it pretty well, I'm going to go ahead and skip over the video. Again, near the end, if we need to, we can pull up in the YouTube channel and get you guys that URL for the YouTube playlist that is all of these videos of all of what's new. Well, the 33 videos of select things that are of what's new in Revit 23 for you. Something good for the structural engineers. So all of the AISE shape tables have been completely updated to correspond to database version 15.0. Those have all been added to Revit. So when using 23, you can be assured that all of your steel shapes from AISE are included in Revit 23. Adaptive propagation for rebar. Again, structural thing, obviously. There's been a lot of work over the past several releases around rebar. This one is actually has some really good intelligence to it. So it's basically shape driven or propagation driven rebar, meaning I would create a rebar set for a particular wall. So in this particular case, it's got a couple of, kind of columns and a header. Over the top, there's a door opening down here. There's an opening above. And now if I want that similar rebar in another similar wall, it doesn't even have to be the same, but maybe this one where one side of it's a little bit wider, or maybe the header is a little bit different above the door. The rebar will actually propagate over and use some intelligence and figure it out. It basically just duplicates it over and adds the necessary bars that it needs to. and makes it work out. Now there's a video for this. I'm not as good at the structural side of things, but let me see if I can voice over this the best I can. Let me pause to, or mute Tomas here, who's doing our voiceovers, but you can see here that you can just simply pick a set of rebar that's already been detailed out, and then just say, you know, I want to pick propagate rebar, pick on all the other columns, and bam, they're basically have all the rebar installed inside of them. They were doing single picks there. They also did a window select and grabbed all of the columns of that type in the model all at once. Now they're doing it for walls, and you can see just how quick a rebar detailer might be able to go in and do 3D versions of rebar in a model like this very, very quickly. So here's the example where it's a little bit different. So we're actually going to align that to the host. And so you can see that the doorways and the walls are actually a little bit different here. But again, it figured it out. It expanded out that additional rebar that it needed to fill in that space, depending on the set of rules that's helping define that rebar assembly, so to speak. We're also being able to do it for just select pieces of rebar. It doesn't have to be the full cage. Right now, they're just grabbing like some of the outside, looks like rings of that. Here's maybe an architectural example. If an architect wants to get a little bit of detailing going on, right? A concrete stair, adding some rebar to that concrete stair, being able to grab a shape and just quickly being able to propagate it up and down the set of stairs. It doesn't have to be another column or another wall. That one showed just in the same set of stairway. And it's not just orthogonal stuff. So here's an example. We're going to propagate rebar in an example of like a parking garage ramp, which is obviously curved and twisted at the same time. We're going to grab they're just kind of showing you around the different rebar selection here. And we're going to grab that set, and then we're going to pick on the top parking ramp above that, and it's going to take that exact same kind of rebar layout and propagate it up to the top set as well. Pick there, select that destination host, and bam, all your rebar is done. I'm going to pause there for a second because, you know, this brings me back to a time when in Revit, seemingly not that long ago. Oh, let's talk about that for a second. So for those that don't know, quick little history. Revit
got the rebar poking out through that upper floor.
Right here.
And at the right side, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure who did this one or if that's just how it extends. It looks like there's a little shadow of some additional concrete over here. I don't know, mate. Jay, it might. I'm not sure exactly what happened right here in this corner. But let's get back to Revit itself. Revit just had its 20th anniversary as an Autodesk product. So for those that don't know, Revit itself is about 22 years old. But on April 1st, yes, April Fool's Day, 2002, Autodesk finalized the acquisition of Revit Technologies Corporation for all of $133 million, which in today's dollars probably sounds like a bargain.
And the irony of Revit coming out on April 1st, I think, was intentional. Just saying.
Probably, because remember, a lot of us thought, like, no way, it's got to be an April Fool's joke. It can't really be happening. So, but if I go back to that, we talk about how old Revit is, and it doesn't seem like that long ago. I remember having conversations with you guys, like, you know, the more you can stay away from modeling round things in Revit, the better, because round things are hard to display and they suck up resources, and you know, they make your models slow. And now we've got, you know, 2 parking ramps here full of round rebar, and it's performing really, really, really well. A little bit later on, we're going to get into some structural steel detailing connections in Revit, where, you know, the bolts and the nuts are modeled. And, you know, there was the time we used to joke about don't model anchor bolts, and now we're modeling anchor bolts. All right, so let's move on. This is the one. So now we've actually got into a library-based connection design automation. So what this is going to do is it is really using a player functionality for anybody that's used the Dynamo player inside of Revit. This is really using that same functionality. It's got a library of some of the most common steel connections in it, defined by industry standards, and it allows you to quickly and easily grab, you know, one of these types or multiple of these types and start applying this kind of real 3D modeling detail to your structural connections, whether they're these bolted plates, you've got some angle connections over here, we've got spot where a steel joist is intersecting this column. And there's some of our nuts and bolts. I can't zoom in because it's a PowerPoint slide, but I'm really hoping those threads aren't modeled on those bolts as well, but probably not. There's a video to this, so let's go take a look at this and see what they had to show. Pretty cool looking structural steel model. We're gonna eventually, as we pan over the model here, get into where this library component is. Oh, I believe they were talking a little bit about the analytical properties of doing this kind of detailing as well. So they're showing some of those kind of analytical stress diagrams right over the Revit model. So here we go, connection. What was that, Jay?
Oh, sorry. No, I'll let the video finish.
Okay, I just paused. Go ahead.
Well, the what was the last thing you just mentioned? Damn it.
The structural analytical properties showing the diagrams, the stress diagrams.
I'm guessing you're going to go in a little bit to the analytics for structural.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's big changes for the whole way the analytical models are dealt with in Revit. They rewrote analytical models entirely for structural steel.
Okay, I'll be patient.
I shouldn't say steel, for structures in general. All right, let's go on. So we've launched the, let me go back a little bit. Jay screwed me up. Nothing new. Hang on just a second here. Trying to get back to the actual button. Where was it? Okay. You'll see up here at the top when it plays right here, connection automation, steel connection automation tool. That's going to bring up that player, give you the available kind of types. You can search for those different available types. They're looking for a specific set of ranges. There's a bunch of rules. This is really Dynamo running in the background. So there's a whole bunch of rules that you can define and apply. Then, you know, it walks you through this list of any kind of player, and it's going to allow you then to run that. And once it runs, you may have saw that quickly over here, there was a bunch of new steel connections that were automatically applied to all of these different things. So we've got some base plates, anchor bolts. There was some steel construction or steel details happening up here at the end of these joists as well. Windowing large sections, applying those rules, flipping some of these things from true to false so that we're, you know, can basically define where these connections need to go. And right here on these columns, you might have saw those connection details snap in really quickly. The structural models look really cool to me, the way they get color coded here too, with the connection details, the steel being different colors to really set it apart from each other. Windowing an entire building, all the steel. Let's go apply all this all at once. What was that, Jay?
How customizable are the base plate and connection families themselves?
In the video itself, the narrator talks about these being fully customizable. So they come out of the box with an entire set that is kind of, you know, industry standards. And again, I'm not a structural engineer, so I don't know what industry standard, if it was completely US based or if there was some international standard that was applied here. But it does say that these are basically a base case, and then they can all be modified to suit your own needs.
Right.
So hopefully that means very customizable, but I would love for one of the structural people on the call to jump in and let us know really how customizable they are. Talking about the library itself, here's a bunch of the things, the kind of parameters that you can actually go in. So ranges of applicability, that's tough to say. You know, you can change all of these things. You can change all the shape parameter definitions, end forces. There's a bunch of stuff that looks like it's customizable in this as well. And obviously just doing a quick little fly through. Let's move on. You guys get the point on that one. MEP stuff. There's a bunch of new MEP stuff this year as well. So one is that there's a couple of new MEP categories. Plumbing equipment is now a category, and mechanical control devices is a category. What does that do? Obviously, that gives us visibility graphics over those things, gives them their own category, allows us to add them to view filters, view templates, define them better so they're not just all specialty equipment anymore or generic models. So yeah, so there's I think that's a good stuff to go there. There's a new corresponding family of parameters that goes along with these as well. Ribbon tools for all of these as well. And existing built-in Revit families have been moved to the correct library. So if it's a pump, it's now in, you know, plumbing equipment and etc. All right, moving on. A tool for everybody. It's an architectural example being shown on the screen, but in the past, 22 and earlier, if you had a shared nested family, so for instance, a table, which is really two families in one, it's a table family with a chair nested into it, and then arrayed around the table. And if you selected it in Canvas in a project, the temporary dimensions did not pick up, they didn't turn on. You could go up to the options bar and you could say activate dimensions, and sometimes they showed, sometimes they didn't. Basically did away from that. So we basically removed activate dimensions from the options bar, and now when you have a shared nested family and pick on it in Canvas, the dimensions are going to pop up, so you can move that nested family around, that table and chair in its entirety as a group. Room performance, right? So rooms are one of those things that can degrade performance, because a lot of you guys have giant projects like what's being shown here with, maybe it's hospitality, maybe it's dorms, something like that. Tons and tons and tons of rooms. And those rooms are analytical in property. They can define not only space, they can also define volume. So basically, we've skipped in this new release, skipped the regeneration and calculation for redundant rooms. And so that helps when you reload and unload links, it makes it about 20% faster. So you're going to see noticeable improvement where you have area and volume computations enabled for your rooms. Again, one of those little features that's all around performance of Revit.
Hey, Scott, does that mean
Yes.
we can now run wild with calculating volumes?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have enough experience. Run wild. I don't know, Jay. Try it. Let's see what you come up with.
With it on.
Yeah, I mean, they say that the performance is a 20% improvement. So I think that one's going to be up to you guys. I think you're going to have to go in and turn area and volume calculations on in a large selection of rooms and see what it's doing for your performance. I'm not sure if I can actually put a metric or a number on that one.
Okay.
This one should help for a couple things. One is performance, and one is just visibility. I love this graphic over here. Has anybody ever been in a situation like this where you need to window select an entire model that's been work shared, and you get what is this, 50 million borrowing icons for work shared elements? Or you select a gigantic curtain wall and all of the pins, because all the curtain wall panels are pinned, popped up, and then you can't actually get to the geometry that you need to. So now in the work set dialog box, this is the one that actually pops up from the bottom of the screen. There's a new checkbox that says show work sharing, make editable controls or not, right? If it's checked, it's going to show these things. If it's unchecked, it's not going to show these things any longer. It doesn't mean that you can't just select on the item, right click and say make editable, or there's other means of making something editable rather than clicking on one of these little icons. What I didn't realize in this is that all of these little icons that pop up on the screen are actually little bitmaps. And so when they're in a view, it takes resources from Revit to figure out how to display all of these little bitmaps over the top of the model. And then of course, if it's in 3D and you're panning and zooming around, then it has to figure out how to regenerate them and re-show them. So if you turn that off, you're going to get much, much better performance when you've got large selection sets selected in your models. You also have this activate tool, so a new shortcut, AC. Again, all the keyboard shortcuts are definable. That's how they come out of the box, and you're free to update those keyboard shortcut keyboard commands if you like.
Is this a harbinger of the future where those little icons are just going to completely disappear because they're fucking useless?
Yeah, I would think so.
Like you just select and try to edit it, and it says you have to check it. Okay, I'll check it out. Boom. Give me a button right there. I don't need that, right? We never needed those things.
Right.
Autodesk, we have never needed them.
I think 99% of the people are going to uncheck this box and never go back again and never even realize they were gone, right?
Yeah, people in a couple of years won't even know that those things are there, hopefully.
And you do have this little guy, right? So a keyboard shortcut activate, this little icon over activate controls. So if you want to see them AC, boom, they're on, right? AC, turn them off. So you can quickly toggle them on or off if you get to the need of actually ever needing them again. All right. Some additional stuff, these are, again, some of the little things that just I can't quite show in a slide, but view performance has been improved. Performance for shape edited slabs, and we're going to talk about shape edited slabs here a little bit later, but obviously if you're going into a slab and you're using a lot of the elevation controls to do warped slabs or put depressions in slabs for drainage or shower pans or whatever. You guys know that if you do a lot of those on a slab, it could degrade performance. We've made improvements there. They didn't give me any numbers for these things, I don't think. Let me see if I got in my speaker notes if they gave me, oh, they do. These optimizations have demonstrated an average improvement of 35% in navigation performance in Revit 2023 across 100 different affected test cases. So some better performance there. Performance with copying large number of elements, loading stuff in the type selector. So again, the developers have on their mind, first and foremost, with anything to do in Revit, trying to make this thing as speedy as possible, because you guys keep feeding it larger and larger and larger models. So what was the audience LOL for?
Oh, well, there's a question outstanding that I haven't answered. I figured we'd maybe wait to the end to
Okay.
get to it.
Sure, that's fine.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
does that work for you?
Does it work for me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
Yeah, there's no hurry on it. It's just
perfect.
Yeah, that's why I left it there, just sitting. We'll get to any questions that aren't quickly answerable that maybe need Scott's more in-depth answers. So I'll leave them there in the question, and then we'll get them at the end.
Sure, no problem with that.
And you know, there's other thing with GoToMeeting is kind of cool. Somebody's not paying attention right now. I can see audience view, and there's 4% out of 96 do not have the presentation in focus at the moment. So pay attention, people. Just kidding. All right, let's move on. Oops, I got to go over here. My arrows aren't working or anything. Come on. There we go. All right, we're on to simulation and analysis. So Jay, you asked me about some of the stuff here just a little bit ago.
Yeah, one
Very
quick
first one. What was that?
One quick second, just a yes, no.
Sure.
Any electric updates?
Yes, there are some more electrical things coming up here in just a little bit. You got to stick around though.
Continue.
If that's not a hook, I don't know what is. All right, are we ready to move on?
Yes, sir.
All right. Silence. All right, perfect. New workflow for structural analysis. So I mentioned this a little bit in passing earlier when Jay asked about it. This is the fact that basically the structural analytical model for Revit has been completely redefined top to bottom. So a structural engineer can actually now model a building with a fully parametric analytical model by itself. They've actually disassociated or decoupled the analytical model from the physical geometry. Revit 2022 and earlier, they were kind of one and the same. You drew a wide flange and then you turn the analysis kind of stick figure on inside of it, and they were really tied together. You could make some adjustments to it, but seemingly things never snapped together correctly. You couldn't get the ends to come together the way you wanted them to, or the analytical model would snap over there and the geometry itself would snap somewhere different. So they've really taken those two things and now separated them apart. So again, then I guess this works a lot more like a lot of the other kind of competitor structural tools that are out there work, where you can literally define, as this diagram is, an entire analytical system first, and then go back and apply actual geometry to it, or vice versa. You could apply geometry and not have an analytical model, and then go back later and associate an analytical model and have it actually built automatically for you with that structure. So, one more here, and then maybe one or two more slides. Yeah, one more slide after this one, and then a quick little video that, again, I'll try to do a voiceover. There's some new tools. There's an analytical member and panel you'll see in the ribbon. Again, you can use existing physical geometry as context and use that to snap to, and we'll show that in this video. Control changes independently, so you can literally take the analytical and move it around if, you know, in this kind of V-shaped concrete footing system over here. If you didn't want that analytical line to do that, you could move it wherever you needed to. So a lot more flexibility there for you guys on the structural side. This is kind of cool too, create multiple analytical models for a single physical representation. So maybe you're testing some things out. So you want to run one simulation with a diagram that looks like this, and then you want to just leave the physical geometry in place. You want to create another diagram and do a quick test run there, because maybe it's more efficient to analyze it that way, or to have it constructed that way instead. One more slide here. So you do have a panel for analytical automation. Again, it's going to use that player window, much like the Dynamo player. And in fact, I believe this is using Dynamo and scripts in the background that come out of the box for you to do all of this stuff. But this is how you can then start associating analytical geometry to physical geometry. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this, and hopefully I'll do my best as an architect to talk some structural to you guys. Let's get rid of the volume. All right, so here's again some of those analytical models showing some of the stress diagrams here. And in a second, they're going to get into this new kind of decoupled analytical model. So they're going to take physical context. They're going to take structural members that are already there. This is just kind of a quick show of the analytical model compared to the geometry itself. It's not just for orthogonal stuff. It can be for complex arched trusses like this. Here's the case where we're going to look at a couple of columns. We're going to go in and we're going to grab a new tool for start and endpoint definition of this particular analytical system. Connect those dots, and you can see both in 2D the elevation or the section there, and in 3D all at the same time. It's snapping that geometry to that physical geometry. Now in this case, here's that kind of different concrete condition for the way that this footer is set up. You'll see that we can turn on 3D snapping, define some parameters over here, define the actual type of section that we're defining this analytical model for. And now you can see that it snaps from the bottom of those round columns to the very bottom of that V, but it doesn't perfectly align with the V itself, because that's how the analytical system would be defined for this particular model. And this is just showing you some of the results out of the robot structural analysis and a results manager when you get those quote unquote rainbow diagrams out of that as well. And then you can take these things and you can adjust them. So highlight the association between them. So once you make an association between an analytical model and a physical piece of geometry, you can see them tied together at the same time. And this is some of the automation that says, I want to just go ahead and select a bunch of stuff. I have a model that's complete with all of my steel already that has no analytical model. Run that player script, change some parameters for some different tolerances and things here. Give it some different outputs. Let's see, we got to switch that. Those are walls, columns, beams, it looks like. We're just going over the different properties that are available in this tool. And when you're ready, you hit run, and it will apply an analytical model automatically to all those. So you don't have to think about, oh man, I have to do all of this by hand, stick by stick by stick. Nope. You can use these players to get this done very quickly in a very automated fashion. Hit the run button, and in seconds, you're going to end up having the complete kind of stick analytical model of that structural steel model that's from the left-hand side. All right. Ooh, this is a long video. What else are they talking about here? Let's see if I can remember from what I learned when I watched these videos before. Looking at a particular shape up here at the top, I think we're going to make some adjustments to the structural system itself. Highlight that association again so you can tell where the analytical model and the physical model are tied together. This is that ability to really construct an analytical model entirely on its own without any physical geometry at all. So you can see that we're just in this analytical tool, just drawing the diagrams, so to speak. Structural engineers, am I saying that right? Just drawing the diagrams. There's our floor as a diagram. There's our analytical model. No steel whatsoever, no concrete, strictly analytical. We can actually go analyze that now in something like Robot. Make sure it applies first, then go back and add our geometry to it later once it meets the calculations that we need it to. And you saw that it obviously is parametric and adjusts where it needs to, just like you expect anything in Revit. Doesn't apply just to steel and concrete kind of in normal patterns. Here's an example of actually doing some analytics for a concrete stair, a much more complex kind of catenary curved arch cable stay, or that truss diagram that we saw a little bit earlier in this video. All right. Yeah, Jay says the Tekla-ing of Revit. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good way to describe it. Probably, you know, that we'd be foolish to think that Autodesk doesn't look at our competition and see what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and try to bring some of those things to our own software as well. So hopefully the structural engineers are happy with that. What do you guys think? Anybody have any reaction from the structural side? Somebody says, yeah, I can't wait. I think that was in reaction to that.
Sal, can you unmute if you're here?
No? All right. Well, it's all right. We'll move on. If they want to speak up later, perfect.
I don't know.
All right.
I'm doing some structural projects. I'm pretty gassed about it.
Yeah, so look, Jay, what do you think? Because I'm not structural, so what do you think? Does it look pretty cool?
Well, I think.
Oh, there we go. Now I can unmute.
There you go. In my experience,
Yeah,
it's at least a time where engineers can start really using Revit for some sort of analysis, where in the past, my experience was it was a joke. What do you say, Sal?
yeah. For the longest, our engineers have avoided any type of analytical portion of Revit just because of the functionality. But this seems to be promising. I'll definitely be pitching it to our engineers so that they can start probably benefiting from it.
Awesome. Glad to hear it looks promising for sure. Yeah, eager to see you guys dive into this, and then maybe a future LARUG, maybe you guys could pop in and tell us what you think of some of the new structural stuff.
Yeah, and let me just drop that, kind of extend that. Not that I'm not already working on Sal and some others to do that, but whether or not he knows it. And also, any of you, the MEP folks that might be on, that want to get together and kind of either dive in, do an LARUG presentation, either dive into the more in-depth discipline-specific enhancements, or just your workflows of how you use the tools, whether they be new or existing. Keep it in mind, because we're always looking for presenters, and we're now back on the board of doing these monthly. So keep it in mind. We need you. Thanks, Scott.
Sure. Yeah. Good segue. I'm glad I brought it up. All right. Sparkies. How many Sparkies are on the meeting tonight? Somebody asked about electrical earlier. We have to have a couple. So here's something for the electrical engineers. This is a brand new tool that is a conceptual tool that allows you to do preliminary load analysis diagrams without even having a model, which is actually cool. So the video that I'm going to show, well, maybe I'll show it. Depends on how well I feel like I talk about it. But they talk about even the ability just to load in a PDF. You can load PDFs into Revit. And so you can load a PDF into Revit and use these tools to sketch over the top of it. And so you can start doing preliminary load calculations basically in just area diagrams, area-based loads, right? So I'm going to be reading some of this for you guys that are electrical, specifying power density, load classification, power factor, and apparent power density for area-based loads. So you can get a good idea of what the electrical loads for a building might look like without placing a single electrical component from Revit, right? No families have to be used in order to start building any kind of load analysis for this new tool. So there is a video, and I'll do my best to try to voice over this and see if I can remember some of the things that they said. Oh, let me mute this guy. So here it is. This is the new electrical area-based load boundaries. So you're literally just sketching shapes, right? So this is just a sketch-based tool. This could be a PDF. This can be a Revit file. This could be a DWG, right? It doesn't have to have any physical geometry in it. But what they're going to do here is just start sketching that shape. Why he didn't use pick line, I don't know, but he's taking these sketch lines and then using a line to make them match the kind of angle of that building. Then they're going to look at that thing as an entire area, and then they're going to realize that, no, we need to break that up into a couple different load areas. So they're going to go in and say that this is a dormitory building, so this is a residential style load analysis. And then we're going to, in a moment here, grab some new sketch lines. So we're going to edit that load again. And you notice they're just going to draw these lines completely across the model. And that's just going to divide this thing now into 3 different zones. So you've got the kind of living space of the dorm buildings. You can see there in the middle. You've got the stair towers and the bathrooms and stuff like that at the ends. So now when they go and pick on these, now we've got 3 different load areas. And so there's our residential. And they'll probably change this. This is now just common area there on the end. And I don't know what they do on the other end, but maybe they leave that one alone for now. Then we can go into the electrical system browser, start talking about the power generation system, what's going to be used. You get to pick from your list. This is all stuff that you guys are used to already when you pick from these lists. And then it starts giving you these area-based loads based on that sketch that you provided. So it's the idea that it's very conceptual, allows you guys to get a much better sense of what this building is going to need as far as electrical loads, again, without having to place a single component inside of Revit. All right, anybody electrical want to unmute and tell us what you think? No, all right. We'll move on. Okay, something again, probably more for architects, but you know, maybe there's some solar studies going on the MEP side if you guys are responsible for, you know, looking at any kind of like lighting analysis, things like that. Solar studies have been in Revit for quite some time, but they were a little bit maybe tougher to find as far as a UI goes. You went down to the view control bar at the bottom, you went into solar study, there were some settings you could change there that we're gonna look at, like changing it from a still image to a single day to a multi-day. These are all controls that were there, but they were kind of spread out through the UI. So what's happened now in Revit 2023 is they've redesigned this entire solar study contextual tab, and it appears in the ribbon when you activate that solar study. So now you have all of these controls in one spot at your fingertips, and you can change these things on the fly. So obviously we can step forward or backward through the different frames. When you're rendering shadow animations, there's individual frames that get generated, and I can skip forward frame by frame, or I can go keyframe, which is 10 frames at a time. We can change the speed over all of these things of how they play. You can play them, play a preview which plays through one time. I can play the shadow studies in a loop. I'll show you that in a video here in just a second. I can change the sunlight intensity, the shadow intensity on the fly. And I can even switch the study type on the fly. So I'm in a still and I want to go to a multi-day and I want to pick the date and time. I can do all of that right from within this one ribbon context. So with that, here it is being demonstrated. So jump into that model. There it is, fully rendered out. Nice little guitar in the corner. So, you know, just being able to grab shadows and adjust date and time right here in Canvas, right? Solar study is in the same spot, but that activates this new ribbon up here. You'll see a solar study tab up here. And this is where we can then take those shadows and we can start going through by individual frames. We can go previous, we can skip through keyframes, which again jumps 10 frames at a time. We can play a single preview, we can play it in a loop where we'll just repeat continuously over and over again, as I explained. Again, adjust the speed, sunlight intensity, shadow intensity. You want those shadows a little bit darker, we can darken those up. It's a little hard to see, but you can see the colors changing down here. It's all, you know, kind of gray in this diagram. They should have used more color. Here's one that's got a little bit more geometry to it. They're going to change from a still image here to a single day and play that, so you can kind of see some of those complex shadows moving over the space. Maybe we want to change it into a fall time solar study, or we want to go in and do a preset and change that azimuth and things there. Again, just adjusting the date and time. Just far easier, in my opinion, to get these things looking the way you want to, or being able to understand what a full animation sequence might look like by being able to analyze those shadows in a much easier way than you could in the past. All right, let's pause for a second. We're moving on to the next topic. And just to give you guys an idea, let's see what, I'm an hour, I think about an hour in of talking. I'm on slide 49 of 111. I think I hid a few earlier because I think some of them were not as exciting to me, so I didn't show everything that was in the list, but I kind of want to keep it at some of the what I thought was some of the best things. But we still have a ways to go.
You want to handle the question now?
Sure, let's do it. I'm gonna crack a adult beverage, and then we'll start answering some questions.
Just because you said it, I'm gonna have one too. You said adult beverage.
I did.
Want an adult beverage.
It wouldn't be a user group without having adult beverages. Who had the question, Jay?
The question was from Jonathan Ludwig.
Okay.
Or do you want me to read it out?
But Jay, I actually kind of maybe take that back. It was about the is reference for the reference planes in those families. I just checked it out. The is reference planes are correct in the 3D framing families, but if you look at the detail components, they're all whacked out. So the issue is that the is reference for the top of like wide flanges is set to center front back, and when you go to dimension it and you have dimensions that have defined center line symbol or center line type, they'll appear as a center line when it's
We're
really the
saving
face.
more money on that place anyways.
What's that?
We're having fun.
Oh, sounds keep having fun. I wish I had no dope Revit too.
Yeah, so I see it posted in the panel now as a question. Obviously, I'm not sure. Do these updated steel families still have the V1.0 assignments of ref planes? That's something I can take back and maybe dig a little bit deeper on with Tomas or somebody else from the structural side of Revit and see if we can get some additional answers for you.
Well, like I said, I looked at the 3D families and they look like they're fine. It's all the detail component families that are kind of
Okay.
whacked out.
Okay.
So
Good to
just
know.
ignore.
Perfect.
Or have the team go fix the detail component families.
Yeah, that would help too, right? Okay.
That would definitely help. Yeah.
I mean the Autodesk team, right? Just to be clear.
Yes, I've already done it on our end, but it's just kind of funny.
All right. Any other questions? We want to take anything else or move on, Jay? What do you think?
There are no pending questions. Does anybody have a question that came to mind or anything they'd like to say before we continue?
All right. Well, we do have 100% audience participation or view right now.
We'll continue on, man.
All right, perfect. Okay, interoperability. All right, so some new things around interoperability. Autodesk is actually, there's maybe like a misnomer in the industry that we did not want to be interoperable, that we want to be proprietary. We're going to talk about IFC here in a little bit, which isn't used as much in North America. It's more of a European and APAC kind of standard, but there's a lot going on with interoperability. The first one is within one of our own products, but this one's actually pretty exciting to me. I've talked to you guys in the past about Formit. Formit's had its own kind of ups and downs. The product has actually been around now for, oh my gosh, probably 8 years. It almost went away at one point, and then recently, in the last couple of years, it had some new life breathed into it. One thing that we're really waiting for was a really easy way to have a bidirectional link between working in Revit and then working in Formit and then getting that Formit back into Revit. And so this is the first part of that, which is pretty exciting. The scenario I always like to talk about with this is that if I was in practice and I was a project manager and I had a project architect that first and foremost I did not want in Revit because they would truly screw things up, or they didn't know Revit, they were just the sketch guy, or they knew how to use some easy, quote unquote easy modeling programs online, they could jump in and do it that way. So what this is going to allow you to do is really start in Revit as one particular workflow. Start in Revit, define either some geometry from Revit that you want to send over to Formit. So maybe in this little diagram you see on the screen right here, rather than grab the kind of whole building, we just grab the kind of exterior wall and this kind of orange box and these windows. And we've said, go ahead and send partial geometry over to Formit, because that's where my project architect wants to sketch some new things for then the design group, the BIM group, to then go model for real in Revit, so to speak, right? So in Revit, you've got a Edit in Formit button. It allows you to pick geometry again, or it has a choice of saying, go ahead and send the whole model. If you want to send everything that's in the view over into Formit, you can do that as well. Obviously, if you've got really, really large models with a bunch of stuff turned on that doesn't make any sense, it's going to slow down Formit. So you have to think about that before you start sending stuff over, okay? The next part of this is that when you get into Formit, you'll see that geometry, and again, yourself or another member of the team can then go edit that Formit geometry, basically save, draw over the top of it, use all of Formit's kind of really almost massing tools, so to speak, right? So Boolean operations, unioning things together, making subtractions of parts. way easier to do here inside of Format than it would be in Revit's massing environment, right? Revit massing, while powerful, wasn't the easiest thing to use. So it's a lot easier to use it here in a sketch-based kind of tool as well. Then the last part of this is that once you're in Format, then you can do, it's still being labeled as a, I thought it was out of preview mode. They're saying here in this slide, it's still in preview mode, which means it hasn't fully exited beta yet, but I thought it did. I'll have to go back and clarify that. But what this is going to do is, oh, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so send to Revit preview mode in Format is actually a button that you check off before you send it back to Revit. You can see what geometry from Format is actually going to go back to Revit. Sorry, it has nothing to do with being a beta or being a preview. I misspoke on that. But it is a functionality inside of Format that allows you to say, okay, what am I looking at that's going to get sent back to Format, to Revit? The cool thing that's a big differentiator this year is that it doesn't insert that geometry back into Revit. It actually links it, right? Which is, as you guys all know, far better in any CAD approach. Anything that's CAD oriented, SketchUp, Format, OBJ files, STL files, DWG. I don't think anybody that really knows how to use Revit ever wants any of that stuff inserted into a Revit file. We always want to link it, right? Because linking allows it to not really load up on the memory. We don't get all the junk that comes along with it. And when we're done with it, we can just remove it and it's gone without having to worry about it, kind of affecting the geometry that's there. So this new thing is actually going to take Revit Format geometry, send it back to Revit as a link, but then that also allows it to be a live update situation. That project architect can continue to sketch over that thing. The designers that are back in Revit can then go to manage links, reload latest, and see those changes live in their Revit session. It's actually a really, really cool workflow. Now there's a video here. Again, I'm going to try to talk over this one. This is more architectural, so I should do a better job at this one. So here's that same little building we looked at earlier, Format on the left, 23, and Revit 23 on the right. We're going to go into the CAD formats itself and manage links in Revit. You'll notice that AXM, which is the format file type, is now available there. So you can link in AXM file types directly into Revit, no longer needing to insert them. What we're going to do now is take some of this geometry here. So there's a actual format model in its entirety. You can kind of see that it's got this big bounding box around the whole thing. Comes in as an object. You can see it's an import symbol over here. Now we want to go ahead and edit that stuff in Format. So we're going to send it back over. This could have been Revit geometry. This one just happened to be Format geometry. And now we're going to use some of those tools inside of Format called a 3D sketch. There's another toolbar button inside of Revit that allows us to do this kind of 3D sketch. This is where you can say launch it with all visible objects, or if I just want to have selected objects, they're going to do a little geometry creation here in the magic of television. They quickly rough out a shape. They say send back to Revit, and then that Format geometry is now applied to the Revit view as a linked file. The other part of this is that you can actually have this stuff be available not only locally, but part of a cloud file as well. So you can actually save this geometry to an Autodesk Docs project and open it and link it directly from there in Revit, or open it in Format for editing directly from the Docs project. Here's that preview icon that you can check on or off which objects you actually want to send back to Revit. It's part of the layer dialog box that's inside of Format. So you can say, what do we want to send back? There's a preview mode. And when you send that stuff back over, it will show up as a linked file inside of Revit. And you also notice that was on the Format side. We're going to talk about some other tools for sectioning of things here in just a little bit. Anyway,
Scott?
Yeah.
Are you going to touch on the coordination models being the most ridiculous thing in the world? Are there any updates to that?
There aren't, not that I know of. I haven't read anything. You're talking about the fact that you can load a Navisworks file as a coordination model into Revit?
So the word coordination, the two words coordination model for that is the most stupid fucking thing in the world. You can't touch it. You can't select any object. All you can do is look at it, and the geometry blows up and becomes really wonky. So as you zoom in, it dances around the screen like nothing before.
Yeah.
So
not a tool that I knew got any attention this year, and I don't know where it's going to go or what's going to happen to it at this point.
You have the ear of anybody, either fix it and make it usable, or just take it the hell out.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure that I'll send that one up the chain somewhere for sure. Yeah, it's one of those tools that I don't hear being used a whole heck of a lot in practice.
Yeah, well, we use it, and it's a hot mess.
It's not good. It would be better. So one thing another slide here in a little bit, we're gonna talk about this actually technology that's called direct shape. So this Informant import is actually using this technology called direct shape, which brings in OBJ files, STL files, this AXM as these shapes that are, like you said, much more tangible inside of Revit. It would be great if we would, and this is probably, and I don't have any advanced knowledge, so I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but I would expect that what we're gonna do with coordination models is go that same way. Take a Navisworks file, use direct shape, so now we can link in that Navisworks file, but now it's, like you said, it's still tangible. I can touch it, I have visibility control, I should be able to turn stuff on or off, I should be able to snap to it, I should be able to do measurements off of it. That would be where I would expect that those tools would go as a coordination model, would be much more this direct shape route that this Informant model is going. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks. Because right now it's a coordination model. You can't coordinate anything.
It's a look at it model. It's not a coordination model. It's a static image kind of thing, like you said, in 3D. It's there. You could lay Revit geometry over the top to make sure maybe that you were drawing a duct in a interstitial space, but that's about it, right? You can't, like you said, you can't snap to it or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Cad File Improvements. So I just mentioned a little bit of this. So linking now of AXM, that's the file format, OBJ and STL files in Revit. OBJ and STL were available before, but they were only available via insert. And again, we all know how bad insert can be when you get into these other file formats. So now you can link all of those. The other thing I mentioned earlier, and it's coming up here again, is that you can position Cad imports now on a named level or named horizontal reference plane. You can have a new place at dialog box when you're linking these things that says, where do I want them linked, right? They're not just going to come in, origin to origin, center to center on level 1. I can say, I want that DWG actually on level 3, and you can pick that ahead of time. I want that STL file to be on level 1 because it's a 3D model of the building that needs to coordinate with level 1. So you get to choose where those things get imported into now. Now the last part of this, that's a bullet that kind of snuck in, and it looks really innocent. Enable cutting of 3D CAD elements in views. So I know you guys all know the old workaround. Let's imagine in the past you had a 3D DWG file from really anything, and you wanted it in Revit, but you also wanted to be able to cut in section. What did you have to do? You couldn't just link or import that CAD file. You had to start a generic model family, import that 3D DWG into a family, save the family, which then in essence categorized that thing as a generic model, and then inserted the family into Revit, and then it was cuttable, right? Well, done away with all of that now. You now have the ability to enable cutting of 3D CAD elements in views. It's a property of the symbol itself. So in this case, this little dialog, a DWG with an enable cutting in views checkbox down here at the bottom. And I believe that we have a video that shows this as well. Yes, we do. All right, so let's get into this a little bit. Oops, pause or mute the volume on my side. You guys can't even hear it. It just confuses me. So here we go. We're going to grab that DWG. You notice that we have a bunch of other stuff in that list now, including Rhino files, 3D and Rhino files, SketchUp, STL. These are all using this direct shape import that I was talking about. So I'm going to pick an OBJ, but they're going to say it needs to be positioned at the parapet level rather than, level 1. So you get to choose where you want that. You can also use named horizontal reference planes. So if it's not on a level, you want to snap it to a plane, drop in a horizontal reference plane, and you can pick that plane from the list as well. So here we are, we're in the import symbol. We're going to turn on enable cutting in views. And now when you drop a section through this, there they go. So you saw them just all update. So you're actually getting a live section through geometry that's not native Revit geometry, but it's able to be cut in section here now in this new tool. Pretty cool. This is something I think, again, it's one of those things that we have been probably asking for the 22 years that Revit's been available to be able to have an easy way of bringing in imports and having them be cut. IFC, we talked more about interoperability. I mentioned this at the top of the slide that mentioned this is the interoperability section. So IFC isn't, again, as big here in North America, but it is very much a European thing and an APAC, Asia Pacific region thing. All new, all model elements now have built-in IFC attributes for the different types, IFC predefined types, export as, export to IFC, their GUID for these unique objects when they get to IFC. It just makes the whole process of getting a Revit model out to a cohesive, well-defined IFC model just improves that, you know, 1,000,000% from the way that it used to be. So I've actually, oh, go ahead.
How about Kobe parameters?
Kobe parameters are not built in automatically, but we do have the Interoperability Toolkit, which has a Kobe tool set inside of that, which will then take your families and map Kobe properties into those automatically for you. So that's a tool that's actually been out there for a little while. Just go to, what's the URL? BIMinteroperabilitytoolkit.com, I believe, and you can download those tools for free, including that Kobe tool.
Would any of those parameter files be able to be shared on the BIM 360?
Yes, and so I think we're getting to that one here in a little bit. We do have a new way of actually taking shared parameters, project parameters, etc., and sharing them directly out to a cloud site. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. You're stealing my thunder, Jay. Just kidding. All right.
Before we move on from the CAD, Jonathan has a question.
Sure.
What happens to the CAD file that's hosted to a named reference plane when the named reference plane gets deleted?
It stays there, but you'll get a warning. I believe this is what it said in the video. It stays there, but you'll get a warning that you need to rehost it. And so you'll have the ability then to rehost it to another named reference plane or level at that point. There's the rehost option, but it should stay where it was.
And there's another, I guess, a comment from Jonathan that it's got some, a project that was started in AutoCAD. All the new kids on the block don't know how to use AutoCAD, so they're just like drafting in Revit. So a lot of banging one's forehead into the wall. But he does suggest, and this is not coming from me, so Scott, it's not just me. Maybe it's time to sunset AutoCAD. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I mean, it's what the entire company was founded on, so I don't know if that will ever happen, but
it's still your biggest seller, isn't it?
It is, because you know what? We always obviously think of it from an architectural perspective, but AutoCAD is used in so many other industries besides architecture too. So there's a lot of use for it out there, and you can see how much use is out there for you know, computer-based CAD programs, because there's all the knockoffs now that are coming out. Bricks and God, I saw one the other day for Arc something CAD, and there's like there's got to be 10 or 15, 20 different you know, kind of AutoCAD knockoff companies that have sprung up recently. So it seems like there's definitely still the need for some kind of CAD-based tools out there.
Yeah, I guess all I can suggest to everybody is just wear a crash helmet.
All right. So, all right. Moving on. Well, let me pause. Any other? I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any other questions. Anything else, Jay? No. All right.
No, just a comment from Mark, who's laughing about the irony of drafting two-dimensionally in a parametric 3D program.
Yeah. Yep. We all have run into that at some point. I probably have told the story. Way back in the day, I had a particular user that didn't know Revit so well, and I was navigating around a 3D model, and there was all of these little lines and things floating in space. And it's because this person went into a view and started just using basically 3D model lines, but they weren't snapping to any particular work plane, and they were trying to draft roof slope arrows on a roof, and they ended up kind of like out in space everywhere. So yeah, just that idea of just drafting in Revit is kind of funny. All right, Enhanced mesh capability. So these two cars, obviously, well, I guess Marcelo could probably, there's a challenge. Where's Marcelo? Model one of these Cobras in Revit, including the knockoff hubs and the spoke wheels. There's gauntlet thrown to Marcelo. Model one of those, but these particular ones did not come from Revit. These probably came from, I don't know, Max or something else, but they got imported as meshes. And in the past, when a mesh object came into Revit, you had no kind of color override available for it. You came in how it looked. If it was gray, it was gray, and that was all you got. And then all of the mesh edges you couldn't turn off either, so they usually look like a mess because you saw all of the kind of like spider webs, you know, over the entirety of them. So now in this quick little video here, you'll see that these objects, when they come in, we now have some override controls. There's the kind of grayish objects as they came in. And now we can go to override graphics and view by category. And we can pick a pattern from the list. You have to go solid if you want to change the color and basically apply a pattern to it. And then you can change the color. So now we've made these two cars blue by type. And then I think we're going to override it by element rather than category. And they're going to apply a solid fill to that again. Change it to yellow, and then actually that yellow is not quite good enough, so maybe adjust it a little bit, and then now we've got a yellow Cobra sitting next to a blue Cobra. Now, well, let me back up there and try to pause it for a second. Realize that what we're not doing, we're applying the color to the entirety of the object. You're not coloring the tires black and the windshield, you know, transparent glass, and you know the rubber seal black. It's one color for the entire mesh at this point, but at least you have a little bit more control over how those mesh-based objects might appear in your Revit files.
Does Autodesk understand that we put materials on things, and that's like whatever work was put into changing that color is just useless.
Yeah, yeah, I would probably agree with that.
Then again, it doesn't apply a material, so how does that render, Scott? Just a big yellow blob, right?
Probably, yeah, I haven't rendered it.
Like, I mean,
I don't know.
we're in a graphic software here. What
Yeah.
the fuck are the developers thinking about?
I don't have my video on. I'm shaking my head right along with you. I'm not sure. Is this being recorded?
Yeah, that's why I said that. I wanted to make sure this gets in the recording so I can snippet it out and Twitter it over to your boys over there.
Nice. All right. This one to me, so I'm curious about this one. This looks like a really cool tool. I'm anxious to see how you guys as customers and users might start using this. This is all around data, and the data that's quote unquote locked in a Revit model, and using some new workflows, basically a thing that's called Power Automate, to get this information out of a Revit model and then downstream into other applications. So what you can see over here is it's going to use the cloud, so it's going to be a Revit model into Autodesk Docs and keep this in mind. Anything in these new slides, my context when I talk about this, if I say Autodesk Docs, it generally means the cloud, meaning either a BIM 360 project or an Autodesk Construction Cloud Autodesk Docs project. They're two separate platforms, but the technologies are really the same there. So it's not just limited to ACC as far as I know. Then it's going to use this tool. It's called Power Automate, that it can then structure that data and send it downstream to other things like Power BI. There's a Trello board icon down here. There's a Teams icon down here. There's an Excel icon over here. Obviously, there's some data connectors today that go Revit to Excel. The promise of this one is it's going to do it in a much cleaner way. It's also going to allow us to do some other workflows, like taking a Revit model for design for manufacturing, Revit model into Inventor as an assembly. So then the Inventor designer can then go place all the factory components on the shop floor in the structure with the context of the Revit model. The cool thing is that through these workflows, they're linked. So as the Revit model gets updated in the background by the architecture group, the people that are laying out the factory floor using Inventor get an updated view in their Inventor model of the Revit model, right? It looks really, really cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. This one's probably going to be my worst voiceover because I don't know how to speak about this well yet, but talking about, you know, the idea that this stuff is mobile and needing to get to data, and, you know, data is becoming such a huge part of everything we do. But, you know, these data sources are, you know, one in a million. So that's where this new tool, this data exchange, comes in. which is going to allow us to take data from a Revit model to the cloud through data exchange and then out to other applications and then possibly into a whole host of other apps down there as you saw. So we're going to take this Revit model. First thing we're going to do is publish it out into a BIM 360/ACC project. You got to make sure you include the 3D model and any sheets that you want to apply to that. And then from within the ACC or BIM 360 environment, if I go to the application little menu there, 3 dots, you're going to get create exchange. I'm going to pick where I need this kind of exchange data to live in the project itself. In this case, they have an exchanges folder. I'm going to give it a name. In this case, it's adhering to a defined naming convention. And we're going to send that over. Now the Inventor team can now go to that same project in Autodesk Construction Cloud and grab that data and load it directly as an assembly into their Inventor workflow. Nope, nope, it's still playing. There it goes. I thought I paused for a second. So here we are in Inventor. We're browsing through the data exchange back to that same project. We can preview it in Canvas here first. Yep, that's the architect's correct model that we want to bring in here into Inventor as an assembly. You can see all of that shows up. And now we're going to grab some of our own components, IAM files. These are assembly files from Inventor, laid out that factory floor amongst the kind of structural steel and other things that were going on there. So a really cool workflow. This is the one that's the Power Automate into something like BIM 360. I'm sorry, into Power BI. Talking about posting a message directly from data about something. The talk track was about maybe it's being able to build a quick, easy bill of materials directly from a Revit model through Excel, sending data out to teams, visualizing a Revit model through Power BI. Tons and tons and tons of possibilities here about how the data that's embedded in a Revit model might be used downstream by some other application. So anyway, it looks really exciting to me. I'm really curious to see how you guys might dive in and start using this. All right. Jay earlier talked about, hey, are we going to be able to store those parameters in the cloud? Yes. There's a brand new, it's still being labeled as a tech preview. There's still a little bit more work to be done here on this one, but it's working well as it is now, but realize that there is probably at least another point release of Revit or maybe 2 for a lot of some of the additional functionality you want to do to get built out in this.
Is
You'll
it
see a new button.
functionality to get built out, or there are issues with it right now?
No, it works well right now. It does work really well. There's some additional things that they want to add to it, from my understanding.
Awesome.
Okay, so parameter service creates a library of parameters on Autodesk Construction Cloud. Now realize that this does only work in the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment. This will not apply to older projects that might still reside in BIM 360, unfortunately, but that's the nature of where we're moving with the technology. What's really cool about this is it's adding parameters from the parameter service anywhere shared parameters are used. You can actually log into your project in ACC without having to edit a text file and create a new parameter from in the project in the Autodesk Construction Cloud and then load it into a project from there. One of the future things that I think that they're working towards is the ability to have a standardized parameter library that's part of your library context. There's a new library feature that's inside of ACC. So you could actually have a standardized parameter library loaded there, and then you could use that to push out into any projects that you might have, and also keep projects updated. So you can imagine you have a parameter file and you're working on a project and you need to add a new shared parameter. So you add it to the service, and you also want that shared parameter added into or updated into another file. So you'll be able to push those things out into multiple files all at once. Inside the interface, you can search, filter, and label parameters. It's going to provide consistency amongst projects. You can imagine that you and your consultants are working together, and if you have some standards defined for the way parameters are named and used, they can be defined in an Autodesk Construction Cloud project and then shared amongst the entire team, including your consultants. They can load those into their projects and use them in their own families then. Also, you're going to see this little kind of icon really anywhere that parameters are available to be loaded. So if you're in the family editor environment, if you're in the project parameter inside of a project in Revit, you're going to notice a new icon that is labeled parameter service. It's going to give you the ability then to load parameters directly from there. Let's take a look and see what they have to say about this one, or at least what it has to show. I get to say it. So here we are inside of an ACC project. We're looking on the right at the kind of filtering and sorting that you can do. You can see an entire list of parameters that are defined. Much easier to do here than in the old text file for shared parameters. So we're doing a quick search for window length. We're looking at a particular filter, and we're going to add a new parameter. So we're going to come into the service. We're going to add a new parameter that's called window head height. We're going to assign that to the common discipline. We're going to make that looks like an instance parameter. And then obviously we've got to categorize that under Windows. Click OK. We just created a new parameter without having to edit a text file and did it from within the cloud. Now what we're going to do is we have a shared parameter file already. Let's load that into this database. So we're going to actually upload that to the service, which is going to give us a vast additional number. It looks like 71 new parameters were added to that cloud parameter file. Here's the parameter service button inside of Revit. Again, sorting, filtering these things from within Revit so I can get to what I need to quickly and easily. We know that your shared parameter files get very lengthy. And we're going to even upload new parameters from here, from within Revit. So you can do it from the cloud, you can do it from within Revit. Looks like we're adding 43 new parameters to this cloud parameter service. I saw download a report. That report will tell you whether or not those parameters loaded properly or not. If you had a malformed parameter in your list, it would not load properly, and it would tell you in that list if it did not load properly or not. A little status icon will show you whether or not they are in a project, whether they've been categorized properly. So in this case, we've got to go in, recategorize that last one as a window-based parameter. We can load that into a project, and then it will be available to be used. So I think we're going to go in here next. We're going to look at a project parameter. There's the new little parameter service button down at the bottom. We're going to pick on that, do some sorting and filtering, nailing down the one that we want. We want to load these guys into my Revit model as project parameters. We just added them. Click close. Assign them some disciplines, types, etc. I don't remember exactly what the voiceover was saying at this point. All right, that's about it. So anyway, I think this is freaking fantastic. I love this idea of a better way of managing parameters, a better way of adding them to a project as a whole, so they can be shared amongst all the different disciplines that might be working on a project. I don't know. What do you think? Jay, what do you think?
Well, I think this is a huge update, actually, and is actually, I think, going to give a lot of ammunition for the upgrading to this version on some of the large projects out there that where everybody's kind of scared to update because of, you know, whatever their BIM managers that are literally just AutoCAD people who change their LinkedIn title are now running the show, and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So they're keeping projects back like 3-4 releases in case, you know, upgrade always has issues. It's like, no, in 1912 they did, but no longer do they.
Right.
Something like this, I think, could be some ammunition, but it's also, I mean, think of it. We're not just architect, engineer, MEP. I mean, there are projects, right, with 20, 30 consultants.
Sure.
That have to deliver in some projects, you know, full-blown COBie and or IFC, with everybody using the same parameters. And the shared parameter situation before this was next to impossible to keep up. So yeah, this is a very, very huge thing that everybody can point to one single place. Oddly enough, for a cloud-based platform, that they're just kind of opening up the cloud for a lot of things, but at least they're doing it. So yeah, it's huge.
Totally agree with you. That's probably one of my favorite features from this release, and really curious to see how you guys as customers start digging in and using this. I think the only drawback for me is that it won't be available in BIM 360, and I find a lot of my design customers have not moved a project or started a project in ACC yet. So maybe again that will spur you on to use Revit 23 and start projects in the Autodesk Construction Cloud rather than some of your old projects that are in BIM 360.
Yeah, there's a question regarding, there's a couple questions. So let's see. The first one is it any extra money for this? No, this is included, correct?
Correct. 100% included. This is just part of the service. Well, I mean, so if you have a what am I trying to say? A collection, an Autodesk collection, which would be, you know, having Revit and AutoCAD, all that stuff bundled together as desktop software, you get Autodesk docs along with that. You can author and stand up projects in the cloud using this library component to share those things. If you have a ABC Pro license, you're using the Revit cloud work sharing component using the bundle of tools we call ABC Pro, you've got access to this. If you don't have one of those two things, then you have to then subscribe to at least Autodesk Docs, which I think the other day I checked is $500 a year. But there's really nobody in the industry that isn't at least on ABC Pro or using Revit from a collection already. So you guys all should have access to this and it should all be included.
Awesome. There's another question. Let's see. Is the idea that the cloud location for the parameter services and such cloud materials would reside in the ACC and BIM 360 vanilla project? All the company standards are stored? Question mark.
Yeah. So the funny thing is the materials that we talked about earlier are stored in a project in a folder, not at the kind of account level, but I think that's probably next step. I got to talk to Harlan and some of the other guys on the Revit team and find that out for materials. For parameters, this cloud service, those are stored at the account level. So each one of you guys that has a cloud set up, ACC, you have an account and all of your projects are in the account. This library is actually at the account level. So that's where you actually can go and manage this stuff. And then you can push it out to any of the projects that you have in that particular account. So you are really managing it for the organization from one single location and then pushing it into the appropriate projects, which then, you know, I just had a thought and then I kind of backtracked. I was thinking maybe if you had a different set of parameters, you know, a shared parameter file for schools and a different one for hospitals. And I'm trying to figure out, maybe you just keep those all in the same service and then use some of the filters and tagging to say, these are the ones that apply to hospitals and these are the ones that apply to schools. That's why I backtracked. I don't think you can actually have different sets. I think they all end up in one library, but you would use some filtering and sorting to identify where those things belong.
Got it. Let's clean up this last kind of comment.
Sure.
And Mark, kind of chime in if I get it wrong, because I believe it was on the kind of Power BI stuff previously. Mark says, I love this. Use each of these platforms. Can MS Flow, the Power Automate, be replaced with Integromat, Zapier, etc. at this point?
I don't have any idea. I'm not sure. I'll have to make note of that one, Jay, or you can send me an email on some of these questions and I can go back and try to find out. We can update the user group at a future meeting.
I can answer it.
Okay.
So as I understand it, Power automates Microsoft's version of Zapier and so forth. So at the moment, probably the answer is no until Autodesk figures out a way either to use like Workato for Construction Cloud or Zapier to integrate that back into Revit.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
My best guess.
Well, and it also on your slide, it said that the Microsoft integration is coming.
Yeah, it did say something about that, didn't it? Well, we could try to go back. Where was that one? Parameter service, that was here. Oh yeah, Revit to Power Automate, asterisk, you know, integration coming soon. So I don't know what's coming soon is, but usually if they're going to throw it in a slide like this that's customer facing, it's on the near term horizon for sure.
Dot release.
Yeah. There's some reason why it got held up now with this release, and I would expect that since they are mentioning it here, that it's you know, coming sooner rather than later. Because I always hesitate when anything from our group comes and it says coming soon. There's no timeline on soon. Soon could be 4 years, right? But in this case, I would expect, and again, no prior knowledge, but I expect coming soon in this case probably means in a future point release of 23. Again, no guarantees. Don't make any buying decisions based on that.
Everybody, Scott promised it's going to be out by next month.
Thanks, Jay. It's recorded.
Yeah.
Don't clip out that portion and leave out my disclaimer. I threw the I threw my own safe harbor statement in there verbally. So
I don't know how to edit video, so if that happens, I don't know what went on.
perfect. All right. Let me get back to where we were here. Parameters. Oh, cloud model updates. So cloud model updates is actually pretty good too. This is a I've seen several different bloggers that have listed this as one of their top 5 favorite new features. In the past, when you went into Revit, in order to get to to be able to manage your cloud models, you had to open a project in Revit, then go to the Collaborate tab, then go to Manage Cloud Models, and it opened this absolutely horrendous dialog box that had these gigantic icons on it that look like little blocky cityscapes, like 8-bit cityscapes. I don't know why, and you couldn't change it. And then if you went into one of those projects that was there was this little tiny drop down arrow that didn't appear unless you hovered over it perfectly. And then you could get to a couple of choices. And one of them was to view versions of a model, which is basically all of the sequentials that had happened in that particular project, or be able to get to relinquish, where we would be able to relinquish control of things that people checked out and forgot to check back in. That entire interface has been completely redesigned, so you no longer have to do that from that Manage Cloud Models from inside of Revit. It actually happens from the Revit home screen now, and it's at when you're at the Revit home screen and you're in a cloud work shared project in Autodesk Docs, the little ellipses on the very right-hand side of those things, you're going to pick on that, and that's where you're going to see now version history. Now, go ahead.
Can we force relinquish from the home screen of Revit now?
You know, I said that, and then I thought about it. I don't know if forced relinquish is there yet. I'm gonna have to go check in 23 here in a few minutes, unless somebody else show it. One of you guys has it open in the background. Go check on the Revit home screen. I thought it was supposed to get added to the home screen, and as soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, "Oh crap, maybe it's not there yet." So it would be nice. It needs to be there if it's not, and if it's not, I think it's coming soon, because the idea was to move all of that functionality out of that horrible old dialog box out to the Revit home screen. Okay. The next thing I was going to mention, Jay, is that in the past, if you went into that Manage Cloud Models and you went to that version history, you had the ability to restore back to a previous version of the project. The problem with that old restore is that it was what we called a destructive restore. If you had done a sequential 100 times, you would see 100 versions. And if you needed to roll back to version 50, you were essentially wiping out the 49 other versions from 50 basically back up to 100. Never to be seen again, like literally destroying them, they're gone. So what they've changed now in this is it's now a non-destructive model rollback. So from that Revit home screen, you can go into that version history and you can choose to roll back to a previous version, which is a sequential version. And what it now does is just takes that file and essentially copies it to the top of the list, so to speak, and gives it, you know, version 101 or version 102 or whatever sequence you happen to be in. And then if you needed to switch back to version 50, you could. And if you needed to go back to 101 again, you could. It's no longer destroying all of those kind of sequentials. It's really keeping that data sequential for you. Okay. So I think this is huge. This is much needed. This is one of those things that, you know, we all have clients that, you know, after a project review a week later, you show them something different. They go, no, we like what you did last week. And then you got to go back, right? So there's always a need for it. It's just much better system in the way it's done now. And I believe, oh, there is. Let's see, there's a quick little video on this. Whew. Play, is it playing? Oh, there we go. So back to the Revit home screen. Come on, guys. Pick up the pace here. Under Autodesk Docs, you'll see a project, and if I go over to the little ellipses menu on the right-hand side, you'll see Open and Audit. Relinquish, it is there, Jay. Version History and Relinquish are both on the home screen now. So if we go to Version History, there's all the different version history. Who did them? I'll pause here briefly. Who did them? Comments and timestamps of all of those things. We can open a file directly from here. We can open one of these past versions from here, or we can restore from there as well. Now, there's something I've told user groups in the past, and I believe I've told the LARUG this. This comments thing is in my opinion, a feature that is often skipped, and it's really important, especially if you ever need to roll back. Everybody in this room has done a Sync with Central at some point and went to that dialog box, and in the dialog box with Sync with Central, it has a comments feed there that allows you to type something in. If you ignore it and don't type anything in, this is blank. But if you spend 5 seconds and say, this is what I did, I was working on bathrooms on level 1. I don't know, whatever you happen to be doing between your last Sync with Central and this one, when you get to a dialog box like this, those comments are going to key you in to what was happening at that date and time, rather than just being, I don't know what Mr. White was doing here, or here, from this date to this date to this date. I think these comments are really, really important. I would like to emphasize, I would love to see you guys as users start using that comments dialog box more when you're doing Sync with Centrals. Okay.
And the only thing I'd add to that is just consider, and I get doing it every single time, but if you synchronize every 15 minutes, I'm going to tell you to go to hell. What I'm going to do though is, like, at the end of the day, that last synchronization, or if we're submitting, or if there's some major thing that was just finished,
yeah,
then put the comment, because
yeah,
then you're saying this stuff was done, it's ready. So if I need to roll back, I need to roll back to that one. I don't need the 29th save getting to there.
yeah,
So,
I would agree, Jay. Totally agree with you.
something like that. But also regarding the force relinquish, have you tried it when somebody is in their model live and they're maybe not at their computer?
I have not tried it yet. Has anybody else online tried that yet?
Well, as soon as I try it in this version, I'll tell you if it works, but
All right.
we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's cool that they captured it as video, because I couldn't remember if it was here in this drop down menu or not, but it is there, which is great. So now you can do a force relinquish without having to open a model in Revit. Cool. All right, let's play this out.
Scott,
Yeah, go ahead.
Since it's something that I never actually had to do, or I haven't had to do it recently in the last year or two.
Yeah.
How do you open somebody's model under their username with named user accounts?
That's a great question.
So we can't, as BIM managers, we can't do the old trick of
Change your
changing our name
username.
to that user's name and then forcing a relinquish.
You'd have to violate your own IT's rules, which would be get that user's password and log in as them, which I'm sure breaks a lot of your own firm's rules, right?
And sometimes it's impossible just because of logistics, being in and or out of the office.
Right. Yeah.
I can't go to the dude's house and fucking relinquish for him.
Yeah. So maybe, well, at least in a cloud project, you would have this relinquish there and available now. But if it's a locally work shared project, yeah, it's a great question. I don't know how we do that if it's local, because we don't have this tool available for local stuff, only for cloud work shared projects.
Whether it be local or just old versions,
Right.
that's a kind of issue. So again, I don't know how much you do speak upstream to the developers with weight, but I mean that's like a brutal nightmare right now in the old versions.
Sure. Yeah. Let me run that up the chain too and see if we can get anywhere with that one. I want to point out that I paused it. I want to point out this dialog box. So if you are restoring back, it's imperative that everybody is saved and out of the model. So, make sure that, you guys communicate. If you're going to do a restore for some reason, everybody sync with Central, save, get out of Revit. I think, at least out of the project, I think to be safe, close Revit and then let somebody do the restore back to a previous version. And then, let the team know, okay, I'm done. Go ahead and reopen it again and let's get going. But there is a checkbox here when you do a restore that, I've notified other team members. Don't just ignore this and check it off and hit restore. I don't know what kind of damage it will do if they're in the middle of doing some work and you roll back a project to a previous version. So, okay. Point that out, make sure everybody's aware. We know how everybody ignores warning dialog boxes like they're like they're nothing. So don't want anybody to ignore that one. Anyway, I think that's restore and that new non-destructive restore is actually a really great tool this year. All right. Whew, I still have a ton of stuff to talk about. What time is it? 8 o'clock? Oh my God. All right.
So let's do this, Scott. Let's take a breath real quick. And so everybody that's already online, I see we still have pretty much the majority of everybody. Shall we keep going and just let Scott, talk till he's finished? What do we think?
Horse.
Everybody's still in?
Still in. Let's do it.
Right on. Let's just continue, Scott. People
Right.
can, and listen, if anybody drops off, thank you very much for showing up. And, we'll be in the future kind of testing out some of these functionalities. Like definitely, I'm going to be on that force relinquish, seeing how that works. But again, thank you very much. And if anybody has the inkling to ever present or have anything written and published, let me know. We're always ready.
Hey, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. So this is Mark. I was just wondering if this is being recorded. I've got to jump off. So.
Yes, it is. There will be a video. We will post it on the whatever YouTubes or we'll put it on the our blog. Probably not the Meetup blog, but the LA Revit user group blog. And you'll be able to find it on my Twitter or the LARUG Twitter when
Awesome.
It's processed. So that should only take a couple days.
Sounds good. Just want to say thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Glad you were able to make it.
Yep. Ciao.
Ciao. See ya. All right. Let's move on. So another new tool for anybody that does any shape editing of floors, slabs. There's two new categories. There's a folding edges, as folding lines and a split lines category that's now in visibility graphics. Obviously, if it's in VG, then you can apply it to templates and filters, et cetera, et cetera. The difference is a folding line when you do a shape edited slab is where the crease is, right? If you have a depression and there needs to be a crease there, that's the folding lines. The split lines, I'll show you in the video, is the ability to define an area within the slab that is essentially split from that slab so that the fold lines inside of that only go to those edges. Like imagine a shower pan depression in a floor, right? You could define the rectangular shape of the shower, then put a point in the middle of it and drop it down, and that's going to be your slope for drainage for that shower pan, right? So no longer have the interior edges subcategory. Those have been replaced with these two folding lines as split lines, and you can convert folding lines into split lines and vice versa using the tool. Now, there is a video. Again, I'll try to do my best to talk over this. Not a tool I ever had in practice was these shape edited slabs, but these are really interesting. So there's our floor and our slab. We can go up to that tool you guys are probably used to, which is to modify the sub elements, modify floors. We're going to add some split lines to that. So in this case, we're going to make that kind of rectangular separate piece of that slab as split lines, and then drop a depression in the middle of it, just like I talked about, like a shower pan or a drainage area as the folding lines. Now, because they are in visibility graphics, we can obviously change the colors and the line types and the visibility of those things if we want to. They're not only for straight orthogonal pieces. Here we've got a curving, sloping ramp again, a kind of a parking situation, and we're going to convert that split line now. Or I'm sorry, that folding line into a split line first. So just pick the tool, pick the line. I think they picked the line. Maybe it was already picked, and now it actually kind of splits that element into two other pieces. Then what are they showing here? We're doing some extra shape editing to do like a ramp into that one. I don't know what that last part was all about. It was really the same thing over again. But anyway, so some new tools there. I'm going to go
a bit more clear on a folding line as opposed to a split line. What is the difference?
The folding line, if I get back into the video again, so in this pause diagram, the folding line is the crease, and the split line is where you would be separating that shape out from the rest. Like this floor is all one floor. So the split line is where you're saying, I need this piece to be quote unquote split out, so to speak. It's not physically making another piece of geometry, but is defining it as a separate piece so that when you drop in this case, they dropped the point right here in the middle of it and dropped it down. Then it created folding lines from the edges of this new split out area.
So basically, they've renamed interior edges with folding lines, and that's the difference between the object's up and downedness.
Yes, you got it.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
Sure. All right. Conditional formatting for family in type. So this is the ability in schedules to now apply conditional formatting. I believe in the video, it's a little hard to see here, but there's 3 options. There's not kind of like all the Boolean operations, but there is whether it's basically true or not true, depending on what parameter, or none at all, I think is the other choice, and allows you to apply color coding to schedules based on those things. So it's conditional formatting for family type and family in type. So you can make sure through your schedules, the ability to graphically display things in a much more kind of user-friendly way. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video. Mute this one. So here we've got an air terminal schedule. We're going to go into family and say conditional format, and the family is going to be equal to an IF something supply diffuser, and they want to make it teal. And then the type of this one with conditional formatting is going to be equal to something called dorm 5.1, and we're going to make those yellow. And then we're going to do another one for family and type, and we're going to set those equal to some family and type from that list there of all the stuff that's loaded in this project, and make those magenta in the schedule. Click OK, and then that color coding applies to those particular things. Pretty straightforward, right? All right. Filtering by sheet in schedules. Oh my gosh, this is one of the ones that, again, I wish I had now 16, 17 years ago before I joined Autodesk. Just the ability to drop a schedule on a sheet and say, hey, only show the things that are on that particular sheet. So this does exactly that. Under the schedule properties tab that's for filter, down at the bottom, there is a new checkbox that says filter by sheet. When you drop a really long schedule on there, you can turn that on, and then it will dynamically adjust to whatever is showing on the sheet. And if you start to adjust something like the crop region of that view, it will also then dynamically update in that. You can also then take that same exact schedule and drop it on multiple sheets with filter by sheet turned on, and it will automatically update depending on what sheet it's on. Obviously, the big schedule view in Revit is not done by sheet. It's kind of the big master schedule, and then when you go to the individual sheet views, then you see it filtered for that particular sheet. Take a quick look.
Oh, so the one, even though they're on the sheet filtered down,
yeah,
the schedule itself is the master, so you could actually use that to manage the data. Oh, sweet. That's going to cut down all my management schedules.
There you go.
Love it.
We're adding a couple of things here to this structural framing schedule in this particular case. I don't know why, but they decided to do some column adjustments there, maybe just to make sure it was going to fit on the sheet where they wanted to. So drag and drop, and then this was, this is what you saw prior. Like, holy shit, how am I going to fit that entire schedule on, on this sheet? There's no way. Even splitting it, there's just way too much information there. So what they're going to do now is actually go to that schedule itself, go into the parameter for the schedule properties, go to that filter tab, say filter by sheet, apply that, and you'll see the schedule now gets much, much shorter. And oh crap, it's still a little bit too long. So let's just grab that crop region and make this one a little bit shorter. And now that schedule dynamically updates depending on what is actually really shown on that particular sheet. And then we want that on yet another plan. So now we're just going to drag that exact same framing schedule onto another sheet, readjust it, and it's only showing what's on that particular sheet.
And still no way to automatically split the schedule and have it span multiple sheets, correct?
Not in this release, but we did a split schedule in a previous release that does that, didn't we? Or am I totally thinking something?
I think you're totally something out of line.
All right.
There's a comment. If we can clean this one up. regarding the, so Payam is saying, would be great to be able to add the same, regarding the floor slabs or the
Sure.
slab editing. The same, let's say you cut a rectangle and then
Yeah.
assign the depression, let's say, you know, -6 inches or whatever for the entire rectangle.
So it makes a depression rather than a faceted sloped slab.
Revit model an actual effing shower pan yet or not?
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that would be great. Just say, take that entire split area and drop the whole thing by 6 inches rather
Yeah,
than
straight
dropping
edge.
a grain point at the middle.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know. Let me go back to the team and see if that's something that was considered.
I mean, because it's only like how every single architect works ever, always.
Right. All right, Jay, let's move on. Displace elements in 2D views. So we've had displace element in 3D views for quite some time. Hasn't been turned on in 2D views. I don't know why until now, but now you have the ability in a 2D view to grab an element, displace it, meaning pull it away from its actual real location. You can add in the little witness lines if you'd like to those things to kind of, you know, IKEA diagram where they were supposed to go. For me, I think this is probably big for MEP, where you guys end up with, you know, pipe on top of pipe on top of pipe in a 2D view, and you want to pull them apart and show that they're there, but they're all stacked collinear. But you want to visually see them and then tag them so you can see them all individually displaced from where they really actually are in that particular view. So this has been turned on. The tagging works with displaced elements. In fact, let's just go. There is a video here. Why isn't this not going? There it goes. Took forever to play. There's a video here that talks about this. And so, you know, they're showing old school. This is the old one. You just take 3D elements and you displace them and you draw the quick little paths or the little witness lines that pop out of those things. Let me see if I can skip ahead here. So here's a 2D funny example. I don't know why they picked this example, but they're going to displace a window from a wall. This is the joke last night was this is mess with your coworker time. You just start displacing elements from a wall and have your coworkers go, why the hell is my window out here? Like, you know, if they didn't know about this tool, you may not know what's going on. So this could be, you know, April Fool's Day jokes on your coworkers. And you saw the tagging was there too, so you can tag those elements still, even in displaced mode. You also now have in 3D, tag all displaced elements in 3D views. So tag all was not there, so you could do that. You obviously have that category checklist as you have for tag all that says I want to tag all doors, walls, windows. The tags can be applied after displacing or prior to displacing the elements, and the tags will move along with those elements when they are displaced or if their displacement position is changed. There's a video, but I'm going to skip it. Go ahead.
The displacing elements.
Yeah.
Let's say in a detail, since you're trying to tell us that that's going to be useful for details.
Yeah.
Can I expand? Can I pull the sheetrock away from the wall assembly?
Yeah, I think you can because it's considered an element. So if you have a wall that's been turned into parts, you should be able to take that part and displace it away from that wall.
So it would have to be turned into parts. It can't just be I cut a section of that wall. I need to show the waterproofing that is invisible, and I can't just move the sheetrock away, you know, whatever 7/16 of an inch, and then just show the.
Yeah, it'd have to be parts first, is my understanding, and then that part could be displaced. Yeah, unfortunately, but I do think that there's going to be some work there with walls in the future and the way that walls are assembled. So maybe there's something in the future coming up.
Well, I mean, if they're going to talk about the displace elements in detailing is something, it's actually not. So that was one of the big things I was looking forward to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it doesn't do anything.
Not working as expected.
A little bit more 3D functionality, like, and for the amount of people who use that, again, more time spent on things that maybe could be done better elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, this next one, multi-leader tag enhancements. We got some multi-leader tag enhancements last year too in 22. This new one is the ability to actually select multiple elements all at one time and generate a single tag for all of them. So the example over here is that they actually just window highlighted all of this and grabbed all of these vertical pieces of rebar, which were 71 in total, and it generated a tag with all of these leaders for it, which reminded me, this will date me a little bit. This reminds me of the old video game Tempest. Anybody ever play Tempest, right? And
Yeah.
and then you have some new tools over here where you can add or remove the host. You can merge the leaders together into one. There's a bunch of other things you can do with this, but it is a much better, quicker way rather than multi-line leader and going pick, 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 right? That was the old way. Like you could do a multi-leader, but you had to pick every single object. Now you can window the objects and see apply a multi-leader and it will grab them all at once and do them all at once. Okay. We'll skip the video on that one for time's sake. There are a bunch of additional taggable categories that have been opened up in Revit 23. Columns. I didn't know that columns were not taggable. Columns weren't taggable, I guess, in the past. Entourage. I'm not sure why you'd want to tag entourage, but you can now. I guess there might be some data there that you might want to display. Fascias, gutters, roof soffits, handrails, pads, ramps, wall sweeps. All of those things I could see being better to be tagged that you haven't been able to in the past, like roof soffits, gutters, I think handrails, so you can define a specific tag for a particular handrail, I think is a big one as well. You also see that you've got model group tags highlighted over here and RVT link tags over here as well. Somebody asked me last night why these tags were all just displayed with a name. It obviously depends on the tag itself. It's up to you guys. There's the out of the box tags for these things, and you can go to the tag family and you can define the parameter that you want to actually show up when you tag these things. Okay. Contour label direction. Now, Steve Stafford told me last night that the old way that Revit did this was actually a civil convention, which was that contours on labels on contours read downhill to uphill on the direction of the drawing from which you might be walking. So generally in Revit, they many times appear to be upside down, so to speak. So now in Revit 23, based on customer requests, those labels will be all right side up relative to the sheet or to the view now. So just again, little fix, makes it a lot easier to read. Most of us aren't civil engineers working in Revit, so we really don't need the civil convention. Let's make it more friendly for everybody. All right, getting closer to the end, guys. This is probably my #1 favorite new tool in Revit 23. Finally, the ability to define a page order for PDF export and your print output, right? So anything you're physically printing out, anything you're sending out to the built-in PDF writer that got included last year inside of Revit 22, you now can actually define the print order and save that set, and it will save. So no longer making a PDF set and then having to open it in Adobe or Bluebeam or whatever PDF tool you have to reorganize those sheets, to put the G sheets first and the A sheets second, and so on and so forth. You can do that from within Revit now. And I believe that was there a video? There is a quick video. Let me see here. I'm going to come back to the second. No, wait, what was the video? Oh, the video is only for controlling patterns. I can show you this in Revit, but what you end up doing is you go into the print or export to PDF dialog box. You grab the set. You can say how you want these things defined, and then down at the bottom, there's an edit print order button. You can see here that it shows you the defined print order, in this case 1 through 16 at the bottom of this list. Same way, you literally just pick the ones you want and you drag and drop them into the proper order and they will renumber. When you close out of the dialog box that's kind of here at my cursor and get back to this dialog box, they will update. Then you can save your current sets, and that's the definition of how those sheets will be ordered when you get them out to PDF or you physically print them out to sheet. Awesome, right? Finally.
Scott, this is Blaine.
Yeah.
I am doing a standing ovation in my office. I may even do a backflip and a jig right now, because this was absolutely the most horrifying thing ever to deal with when you're dealing with 400-page sets.
No kidding. And you know what? I got to see you do that. We should get you on camera.
It's
Maybe
one step, man, right?
Nice, Blaine. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, it's one of those features that I think has been a long time coming. Obviously, we all had our workarounds, which usually involved taking, especially PDFs, out to something else and spending, I shouldn't say spending, wasting time reordering sheets. And so now that we can do that internally. Now the question came up last night, does that apply to projects that are published out to BIM 360 or ACC as well? Because you guys know you can define a set, and when you publish out to BIM 360, those sheets will show up inside of BIM 360 as well. I asked Harlan, and he wasn't 100% sure, but he thought pretty confidently that it applied to those published functions also out to the cloud. So something we're going to have to check out, but I believe that that's the case as well, because it is part of the set definition as it's defined inside of Revit. Okay. Yeah, finally. Control patterns with family. Oh, say that again.
How many years was that? What, 12, 13 years?
Yeah, well, Revit's 22 total years old, 20 with Autodesk now, so we'll call it 22 years in the making.
Thanks, Scott.
You guys remember too that at one point when prior to Autodesk owning it, there was Pine Bush PDF writer built into Revit. So Revit had a PDF writer for the first, what, like 8 or maybe 8 years. There was some point even after the Autodesk acquisition that the PDF writer internal to Revit stayed. And then when Autodesk had a big push to DWF, there was actually a release of Revit that was delayed by a week or two, if I remember correctly, because somebody much higher than all of us insisted that the PDF writer be pulled out of Revit because we were trying to push DWF. So there you go, little history.
That's very similar to when Autodesk bought Navisworks from Jetstream. Navisworks, before that, you could literally link in a live Revit model and have it be the Revit model. And the first thing Autodesk did was pull that functionality out, and we've yet to see it back.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's a cool feature.
Jetstream was fucking awesome. And then Autodesk bought it, and literally they put their logo on it and pulled that functionality away.
And then boxed it up and sold it.
Yeah.
All right. Control patterns with family parameters. So this is the ability to control fill patterns individually for each instance of a filled region. In the past, you had to make special patterns to do this for each one of them. So the filled region tool allows you to define, you guys know, so define areas for fills. The previous releases of Revit, the fill patterns for filled regions were driven by a family type parameter. This required you to create a separate family type for each fill pattern. In 23, we enable the use of an instance parameter for fill patterns. This means that you can now individually control the fill patterns for each instance of a filled region in your project. I'm reading some of this. It's telling you you basically edit the family, and then you go into the type properties or the instance properties, and you can define what that parameter is, and then you can have it control the actual pattern for you. Much better than the old way, which is creating individual instances of patterns for all of these things. All right, let's move on. I'm getting close, guys. I know it's getting late. Sorry. I'm going to skip that one. Swap views on a sheet. So in previous releases of Revit, replacing a view on a sheet required you to first delete the existing view and then drag and drop a new view onto the sheet. 23 makes that a lot easier because you can just simply swap out a view now. So swap a view that's currently placed on a sheet with a compatible view. You can select the existing view and navigate to the positioning and view contextual panel in the ribbon, which is right up here. And the viewport positioning parameter is saved for each viewport and determines how the view is positioned. So you can choose to position to viewport center or to the view origin. And so this also came up last night. What defines the view origin? It's kind of nebulous. There are some third-party tools out there. I believe PyRevit and others can actually drop a little marker in the origin of a view so that you can actually see it. We do not yet, for whatever reason, I don't know why, expose that in Revit. We should just have it a visibility graphics thing like the shared positioning system is for shared coordinates, but that's a whole other story. But you can determine where the origin of a view is and use that as a swap position, or you can use the center of the view to do that. The view list for where you want to swap these things out is completely searchable and filters the list of all the different compatible views. Views already placed on a sheet are appended with their detail and sheet numbers for clarity. So you can see, maybe you can't see it, but in this list up here, in parentheses next to some of these, they already have a sheet number and detail number next to them. It means that they're already on a sheet. So anyway, I think that'll make it a lot easier. You can now literally duplicate a sheet, go to the next sheet, take the view that was already there as a floor plan and swap it out with another floor plan to get it positioned exactly where the last one was. Should make it a lot easier for doing sheet setup for you as well. All right, and there's the video. I'm going to skip that one. View filter enhancements. You now have wall sweeps. Default, these elements inherit their graphical appearance from the walls to which they are hosted. In Revit 23, there's a new subcategory for wall sweeps. You can see it over here and over here. It's basically been added to view filters, making it possible to control the visibility and graphical appearance of wall sweeps independently from their hosts. So you can create a new view filter that overrides the line work display for the wall sweep subcategory. And once that filter has been defined and added, the wall sweeps are automatically colorized as specified. I asked Harlan behind the scenes, I go, what about wall reveals? Why just sweeps and not reveals? And he goes, it's actually a lot trickier of a problem because a wall reveal is really a negative in the host, and the negative is obviously not displayed. So he said to be able to do that, they've got to do something else, because really what you're displaying is the host boundary. My example for him was, in a lot of stucco kind of detailing, you do half-inch reveals everywhere. And in my old experience, when you did reveals in a wall, they inherited the cut line style of the wall itself, and in elevation looked horrible, because then you got all these really thick, muddy looking lines for all of the reveals, rather than maybe a nice thin profile showed for that wall reveal. But so this applies to sweeps. New filter rules for base and top constraints as well. Basically enables you to manage the display of walls in your project using these parameters. So an example of this is that you can define a view filter for a base constraint of level 2, such that all walls created on this level are displayed in green, right? So it makes it the ability to show quickly and easily, are my users, my designers actually hosting walls properly? If you have a green wall that goes, from top to bottom, then it's not hosted by level. So those things will start to stand out by using view filters by top and base constraints now. There's a video, I'm gonna skip that one. Project browser icons. This will actually probably be one of the very first things you notice when you open Revit 23. You look at the project browser, and there's going to be all these little blue icons over here in the list. Basically, what we've done is every view that is on a sheet gets the blue icon. So it's a quick visual indicator if something's on a sheet or not already. Of course, I could go up to the project browser organization and set one up for not on sheets and switch it, but then I'm only seeing the things that are not on sheet. This one gives me that graphical representation right here in the view, makes it really easy to understand overall floor plans on a sheet, where this floor plan up here at the top is not yet. Solid filled icon says placed on a sheet, empty icon not placed, half filled. Schedule is partially on a sheet. So I showed you earlier, we can now filter schedules by sheets. And so you might have a schedule that is partially on a sheet on one, but the rest of the schedule is not on the other sheet. And so those icons will be half filled instead.
Okay, wait a second. Partially on sheet. That just means this is a schedule that is only showing the objects on that sheet, correct?
Correct.
Not that it's running off.
That's the way I interpret it, Jay. That's how I read that, because let's imagine, like earlier they had a column schedule, right? And they dropped it on a sheet and it only showed what was on that sheet. Now you might not have put that schedule on that sheet, might only show 50 items, but the entire schedule actually shows 200 items. So then that would show a partial, because I'm only showing 50 out of the 200 on a sheet.
Got it. So it's not showing it that, hey, your schedule is blowing up beyond the
right
title. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to make an assumption. I'm going to assume that if I take that schedule and I place it on multiple sheets, so that I am now displaying all of the objects that would be associated with that schedule, then it should fill in blue entirely, right? Because now that schedule is quote unquote complete, even though it's on 4 sheets, it's showing everything that might happen to exist in the building because it's stretched across, it's placed on 4 different sheets.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Whew. Throat's getting scratchy. I'm going to need another adult beverage. A few other things. Edit label dialogue improvements have happened. Oh, common properties for model groups and RVT links. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but if you open a family today, there's a kind of a generic set of parameters that goes for every single family. URL. Oh gosh, what else is there? There's a whole bunch of stuff that gets listed in those things. Well, they've extended that out for model groups and RVT links now. So you get that kind of common property set that used to be reserved just for families across model groups and RVT links now as well. More performance improvement in printing, publishing, and export functions. For those that are interested in APIs, there's new view and sheet APIs. You can get into using things like Dynamo to maybe enhance the creation of sheets for yourselves. So, and again, I don't think I probably hit upon all of the stuff tonight. In fact, I know earlier I hit a few slides that I thought weren't quite as interesting. Let's take a look at that entire list now of things that, at least from a marketing standpoint, these are all the things that they listed. And again, I did not mention all of these things tonight. These are the design productivity things that we highlighted. I know we talked about measure in 3D and pick a plane and some of these initial ones. I skipped British rebar shapes update. I'm not sure how much work you guys all do in Britain, but there's a whole new shape catalog for rebar for Britain. I didn't realize Britain used different rebar than we do. What else is on this list that I probably didn't show? I think I showed most. Flip controls for fabrication parts. I didn't know, but the old fabrication parts did not have flip controls on them like typical families do. So if you needed to flip a fabrication part from right to left to right, you had to have a completely separate instance of it. Now they've included flip controls on those things. So lots of things here under design productivity. On the next slide, simulation and analysis, a bunch of new stuff for the structural analysis, analytical models that we talked about. Interoperability, what did I not hit upon there? The direct shape import placement, I talked about it. I actually didn't physically show the slide for it. I think I hit everything under cloud and data, design optimization. Oh, I did not mention new input types for generative design and Dynamo and some new UI improvements there. John Pearson, if you don't know him, go check him out on Twitter. He's actually part of the Parallax team under Aaron Mahler. He's got some great Dynamo stuff. He's a guru. He's really jazzed about some of the UI improvements in Dynamo there. He's got about a 10-minute long video he posted on YouTube and all of the new Dynamo improvements there. Obviously, that goes along with generative design as well. And then on the last slide here, our documentation efficiency. And I think I hit on almost all of these. I did not cover rebar cover in schedules and tags. Effective solid rebar visualization in 3D views. I don't think I mentioned that one, but anyway, we covered a good chunk of this. And then I'll leave it at the last point is that this list isn't even comprehensive. I've been reading some of the different various blogs and things that are out there. Dan Stein's got a great one. He wrote an article for AEC Bytes. He actually mentions in his article features above and beyond this list. So there are lots of little things out there. A lot of people participate in the Revit preview, which is the Revit beta program. And they pick up on little nuggets along the way that may not make it into the kind of enhancement list here. But for me, I feel like it feels like a pretty good, solid release. Last year was, I think, a fantastic release. The development teams and Autodesk in general reacted to the open letter that I'm sure you guys all heard about. Last year was a huge push to do a lot of things that really needed to be done. This year, I think it was a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, and the Joneses were ourselves. And so there was a big push to, try to do as much as we did in the Revit 2022 release. So anyway, to me, feels like a good release. Let's open it up to questions, see what you guys think, and if you feel the same way from what you've seen tonight.